we are going to jump into the Board of Ethics. And so we're going to talk about what is happening there. I actually do have the notice of the meeting pulled up, and we have the Zoom, which we're trying to get into. I'll show you what's happening with Zoom right now. So we don't know if it's because we're a little early or what, but when we open up the Zoom meeting, we try to get logged into this, it tells us invalid meeting ID. So we're going to see if that changes between now and the next 30 minutes or so, and see if we can get into this Zoom meeting. But as it stands, the meeting is not active at the moment. Of course, we are a little bit early, so we'll see if that changes and keep checking in on that. And it should be very interesting because inside we're going to see we have some complaints. Now, yesterday, there was also some very, very wild news. Judge McAfee is going to be getting an election challenger, and so we're going to go through that, have an idea of who this person is. His name is Robert Patillo, and I got a couple clips on this guy, and so we'll jump in, learn a little bit more about him, and cover this segment before we get into the Board of Ethics hearing, of course, with Fani Willis. And so she was out yesterday. She registered. She got signed up on the ballot, and she's going to be, voting, demanding votes in Fulton County for her reelection as the DA. And we know it's a very blue county, so the idea that Judge McAfee has a challenger, I think, might add another element to this. We've already talked about how this might impact the court of public opinion. And of course, this might really turn that into overdrive. So we'll talk about that. And Steve Sadow, Trump's attorney, actually responded to Judge McAfee getting a challenger, right? And this challenger, you're going to see somebody who we think is going to add a lot of political pressure to this whole saga. So Steve Sadow came out and he talked about that as well. And so we'll try to squeeze this in before the Board of Ethics hearing starts and see what is inside that. We've also then, at the end of the hearing, I don't know how long the hearing is going to go, but we do have some new filings that we need to attend to. And we're going to go through it, our new filings, because they just dropped. And so coming up after the hearing, I intend to, provided we get into the hearing and it actually is working and broadcast, we are going to listen to that on the Zoom. But then afterwards, we're going to come back, ideally, provided we've got time, to have a debrief on these new filings. So Fani has submitted a last-minute brief, and that last-minute brief is trying to convince Judge McAfee that he doesn't need to disqualify her. She's totally above board and leave her alone. Now, Steve Sadow responded. This is Trump's initial reply. And he says, Fani Willis is way off the mark, as per usual. And we'll see what Steve Sadow said. But then we also had another filing from Jeffrey Clark. You remember him. And he just had a very, very nice response. He basically went through those same 6 conflict of interests that we had seen previously discussed. And he sent that one back into Fani as well. So we'll have some good stuff to attend to on that one. And then, of course, we'll see what you guys say about all this, because there is a lot to say. There's a lot of differences of opinions on what is happening here. So we got some good stuff to get into, my friends. We're going to keep checking back in, see if we can get logged into that Zoom meeting and get that audio shared. But we've got some other good segments in the event that something goes off. Now, I've got some other updates. So we have, of course, our members-only community, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We do after parties there. We do streams in the morning when our schedule's normal. And we have shows on Saturday. We'd love to have you. We got a great community over there chatting away, and we'd love to see you there. We also have robertgovea.com, and I've got a new feature that I'm excited about to share with you on this one. So if you go to robertgovea.com, something that we've been working on is getting all of this stuff organized into a calendar. Okay, so if you go to robertgovea.com, you can click this button up here. It says calendar, and the calendar now is going to have a bunch of stuff on it that we're covering. So for example, today we got Fulton County Board of Ethics, the special complaint. It's right there on the calendar. We are covering it. The show is also on the calendar. We started at 7:30. So if you want, you can add this calendar. Just click this button, this Google Calendar button, add it to your calendar. And that way you'll have all of the notices that are happening here. So for example, we have the Trump trial coming up in New York, right? That's coming up on the 25th. And that's going to basically be an all multiple week affair. In April, we got a bunch of busy stuff coming up. We've got SCOTUS stuff. So Trump SCOTUS briefs are due. You can see we got these The respondent's brief is due. The petitioner's reply is due on the following Monday. We have petitioner's brief is due here. And then we have oral arguments, which are going to be scheduled on the 25th. So in other words, you can add this to your calendar. We have our members only streams that are noted on there. The Watcher show is on there. And so we're going to really be populating this with all of the Trump calendar stuff, all of the litigation, all of the reply briefs, when everything is due. So if you want to add it to your calendar, very easy, all free, of course, just go to robertgovea.com. Link is in the description, and then you can check that out. So we know what time we're going to be streaming, and I'm going to make sure the show is up to date so it's not so confusing, because I know things are a little bit wonky. So hopefully it's something that is useful. We also have watcherlodge.com. We got some good lodge member-only events coming up this weekend and the following week. And this is a project that we're kind of building in public. So you're going to see a lot more stuff come down the pike very soon. But all right, so thank you for supporting us and the other stuff that we're doing. Links on all that in the descriptions below. And we'll see you there. So let's talk about what is happening today in the Fani Willis saga. Of course, she has a couple of complaints that have been lodged at her, not only from the defense attorneys in the RICO case, but also other people in her livelihood, right? In the public servant arena, where she is supposed to be complying with ethical guidelines and following the rules of professional conduct, all that stuff. And so what has happened is now we have a Board of Ethics hearing that is up. And here is what they told us. Board of Commissioners of Fulton County, the Fulton County Board of Ethics, they have a notice of a meeting. That's today, Thursday, March 7, 2024. And here is the Zoom link, although this doesn't work. I tried it. I also tried it with the meeting ID and the passcode, and it says it's not valid. We'll see if it gets valid here in the next few minutes. But here is what is on the agenda. And I don't know how long this meeting is going to go. We'll see. Sometimes these can be pretty quick, kind of an hour in and out. But they're going to do a welcome and introductions. They're going to have an adoption of this agenda, the one we're looking at, an adoption of the minutes from the last meeting in October. They've got some unfinished business to attend to. And you see, it's Misha Mainer's complaint about Marvin Arrington. Who knows who that is. And then here is the name of the complaint, Arrington versus Duraca, right? So not relevant to anything we're talking about here. But then in subsection 5, we got some serious new business to attend to. And we've got a request for an advisory opinion. That's for Roderick Conley. Probably not something we're interested in. But then we get these two ethics complaints, right? And this is why we're here today. And so we got Gregory Mantell concerning Fani Willis. He dropped in an ethics complaint. And Steve Kramer concerning Fani Willis also dropped in an ethics complaint. And then once those are done, they're going to talk about vacancies, and then they're going to adjourn. And that's basically going to be it. Not much there. So we're going to pay close attention to this section, and we'll probably skip most of the rest of the other stuff, and then we'll just chat and see what is cooking over there. But you might ask yourself, what is the Board of Ethics? What are they doing there? Who are these people? What's their purpose? All the things. Here is some background on that. So it consists of 7 members, the Ethics Board, who have been residents of Fulton County for not less than 3 years, and they're appointed by different organizations. And here's what it is. 7 members, all residents. And the positions are, okay, so yeah, one member is nominated by the Atlanta Bar Association, one by the Gate City Bar Association, one person from the Chamber of Commerce, one person from the Business League, one person from the Airport Chamber of Commerce, South Fulton Chamber of Commerce, and other things. And I've been on boards like this where you got to be, a resident to be nominated or a member of the bar to be nominated. And they try to create this cross-section of people that apparently, have some evaluation skills, and they make decisions. Now it says the code was amended stating that members, the board, okay, here's what it does. The Board of Ethics, what we hopefully hear in a minute, renders advisory opinions and hears complaints with respect to whether a particular course of conduct would constitute or has constituted violations of the standards imposed by Fulton County Ethics Code. They enacted a new code of ethics, and on July 7th last year, they replaced somebody who was disbanded, Fulton County Personnel Board. They replaced that. They swapped it with the Chamber of Commerce. So as you can see, right, a bunch of people who are going to be on here, and here are some of the members: Duraca, Mercedes Miller, Lewis Levinson, Benjamin Fox, Ouida Collins, are all on the board, terms ending. Well, that term ended. Who knows if that person's back. But all right, so they get to spend $150 a meeting for, their coffee and their donuts in the morning. And we'll see what it looks like when it all unfolds. And let's see if they have warmed up the tubes on the Zoom link. And it still says invalid meeting ID. So hopefully they fix that for us here. So the Zoom meeting is not up on their website. And this is for today, March 7th, 24. So hopefully it works. But we'll keep checking on it and we'll see what is inside. So that is what is happening, right? That is the Board of Ethics. Now, before that puppy warms up, let's squeeze in this update because this is a pretty big one. Judge McAfee, the judge presiding over Fani Willis in the Nathan Wade scandal, is now getting a challenger. And this has been reported by local Atlanta news. The guy's name is Robert Patillo. Looks just like this fellow right here because that's him. And here's the story from the Atlanta Journal. We're going to take a look at it and then see a little bit more about who this guy is. Who is Robert Patillo and what are some of his positions? Fani is out reacting after she entered her name back on the ballot. And Steve Sadow is responding to this new political layer that really exacerbates some of our political concerns about justice being done here in the first place. So this is the story. And this guy is a pretty credible candidate, it seems. Someone who might actually win. The civil rights attorney is now emerging to challenge Scott McAfee. Here's the story by Tamar Hallerman and Greg Bluestein over at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. They tell us civil rights attorney, this guy, Robert Patillo, he's also a talk radio host, so probably has a pretty big audience, probably a lot of energy there in Georgia, plans to run against Judge McAfee, who's been overseeing the Fani case. Now, Patillo plans to qualify as a candidate for the position today, according to multiple people familiar with the knowledge, but they declined to speak on the record. He's a former executive director of Rainbow Push Coalition, which we have a clip from. The social justice, and it's a civil rights group. Guess who founded this one? Reverend Jesse Jackson. He's also a criminal defense attorney, cable news pundit, and a former candidate for State House who has previously billed himself as a conservative Democrat. Interesting. Now, McAfee, a former Fulton County and federal prosecutor, is running for a full 4-year term on the bench after being appointed by Governor Brian Kemp in late 2022. His platform includes clearing the backlog of COVID cases, right? And so think about this in terms of demographics and votes and how this went previously. We know that Georgia technically went blue last election, and Fulton County was a big reason for that. Of course, there were water main breaks there at 2 a.m, but whatever. So we now have a conflict, right? We've got McAfee, who's appointed by a Republican in a blue county, and this other guy is a Democrat through and through. So even setting aside, for example, if we just set aside all the Trump stuff, right? Just forget it. Forget the Fani stuff. Forget the Trump stuff. Let's just say it's a regular, normal election. Already, McAfee's at a disadvantage, right? He's already facing an uphill battle because this guy, it sounds like very well known in the local area. Patillo, meanwhile, says he plans on promoting restorative justice. Yeah, because, everything is broken and these people have the solution to fix it. We've seen how that works. Programs for juvenile offenders, clearing cases, reducing wait times, and so on. He does not initially appear to be challenging McAfee due to his work on the case. Yeah, right. Now, Patillo declined to comment on Wednesday. While it's not unusual for sitting judges to attract challengers, they almost always get reelected, but this is not a normal situation. Contests for Georgia are nonpartisan. Unlike partisan races, judicial contests are not on the ballot in November, okay? So they'll be actually on the ballot May 21st, the same date of the primary for partisan races for Congress and State House. Runoff would be in June. In late 2019, Patillo nominated himself for the Senate once someone retired. He says, broadly, we want the streets to work. We want clean water and clean air. McAfee, who previously led Georgia's Office of the Inspector General, has won high marks from many legal observers for his even-keeled handling of the Trump case, but some are upset that he initiated this whole evidentiary hearing against Fani. McAfee said he was fine with this. reaching out. He was presiding over a murder trial on Wednesday. And McAfee, they asked him in court, they said, hey, are you worried about this? You have a challenger here. Are you concerned? He says, quote, whoever qualifies, McAfee, I look forward to making my case to the voters, proving my track record shows that I am the best candidate to provide Fulton County with efficient, unbiased, and nonpartisan application of the law. Beyond McAfee, the two other players in Fulton County racketeering case are also set to be on the ballot. Trump is the presumptive nominee. Willis is a Democrat. She could also face a challenge, something she acknowledged. We have a clip from her. At least one prominent lawyer responded to this, Steve Sadow, and we're going to see what he said on the X platform. So it is going to be interesting. And who is Robert Patillo? Our friend Viva, right next door. Viva Fry, of course, all over the place. You know who he is. He's also next door on Rumble and on YouTube and on Locals at vivabarneslaw.locals.com. But he grabbed this clip from us, and he said, I sure hope Robert Patillo scrubbed his social media footprint of anything incriminating. Oh, wait, no, he hasn't. Here he is on RT. RT, the Russians reveling in the Russiagate hoax, predicting that Maxine Waters would become Speaker of the House. All right, just to give you a little taste of his politics.
Legally, did you see a smoking gun anywhere in the 2,500 pages that were released today by the Judiciary Committee, and then also following up with the conclusion of the Senate Intel Committee, which is at odds from the House Intel Committee? Your thoughts?
Well, what I think we saw on the 2,500 pages is that there's continuous smoke. Ted was just saying the Democrats need to stop talking about the investigation. The problem is every single day there's a new trickle of information, whether it's the Don Jr. testimony, whether it's Manafort, whether it's Flynn, whether it's entirely down the line of people in the orbit of the president that looks like they had more connections to the Russians than they initially disclosed. The problem is that when you lie about things, when you continuously make false statements that are easily proven to be false and then change the statement later, it erodes the trust of the American people. So this is not going away. This will be an issue in the midterms. And I guarantee you, Speaker of the House Maxine Waters will start impeachment proceedings immediately when she's sworn in next February.
Speaker of the House,
I think he's
Maxine
serious.
Waters, you're breaking news here tonight, Robert. All right.
Look, I guarantee Speaker of the House Maxine Waters will wrap this up.
All right. Well, that's a stone's throw. There's no question about that.
Okay, so he is repeating and regurgitating a bunch of the Russia collusion hoax nonsense, which was all total nonsense. And I think he was being serious about Maxine Waters. I think she was the one who said, get in their faces. Remember that? She was screaming outside, rah, rah. And we were going, that's interesting. I thought that almost sounds like insurrectionary language, okay? Because a lot of people on the right side have been prosecuted for a lot less, like posting memes and stuff. So very curious to hear that. Now, there was this other clip. Of course, we just learned that he was a leader of this coalition called the Rainbow Push Coalition. And we also know, by the way, that Fannie Willis is on the record on this. She prefers black male judges, okay? And not black female judges, because they can be a little harsh. Black male judges, as long as they're not Republicans. And this came from her own training. And this was something that she told her other prosecutors that they needed to do so that they could get lower sentences, which is wild because she's a prosecutor, and it's weird to hear her go out there and try to fight for lower sentences. But lo and behold, that's what, of course, she's doing there. And so Fannie prefers this caricature of a judge. And so she'll, of course, she likes the avatar of the, black male judge who's not a Republican. That's this guy. But also, apparently, he is viewing a lot of criminality as progress. So remember, back during the Summer of Love in 2020, we had a bunch of BLM riots all throughout the country, causing billions of dollars in damage, dozens, if not over 100 deaths, magnitude of damage, multiple scales, exponentially more than anything that happened on January 6th. We're talking about 2 billion in damage versus about 2 million in damage. And the comparisons just go off the charts from there. So we ask ourselves, was that appropriate? Was BLM and those riots that literally burnt down the 3rd Precinct Police Department in Minneapolis, and Kamala Harris was excited about that, posting that people should be released on bond, right? And she would help raise money for that. It was a wild time. But we're probably gearing up for that again. It's only March. We got a couple of months until we really need some summer madness happening out there. And so maybe it starts in Atlanta, who knows? But he apparently wants more of that, right? Because that was making progress. So here is Robert Patillo running against Judge McAfee, explaining that the Summer of Love, all of those fiery but mostly peaceful protests, were just completely above board and something that we need, America.
And we see the same movement continuing today. These young folks that you see in the streets that you guys like to complain about, well, why are they burning cars? Why are they breaking windows? Why are they tearing stuff up? Well, what are we going to say when we look at these young revolutionaries in 50 years?
Criminals, communists.
Because we criticized, and we're criticized for any form of protest, any form of advancement, but it moved the ball forward. It moved that baton along the relay race. And as the older lions are giving way to the young bulls, what we're seeing is the fight continues.
The fight continues as those old guys who are a little bit more peaceful get out of here and give it over to these new young guns who are carjacking people on the streets of Washington, D.C. All right, so you see kind of where this is going, right? And that is the guy who's going to be challenging Scott McAfee, according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Now, there's some reaction to this, obviously. Fani Willis is as happy as we've ever seen her. She is as thrilled as can be. She was very concerned that Scott McAfee was going to remove her from office, disqualify her. But now that there's all this political pressure that's going to be coming down to bear upon him, she's thrilled. Why? Because Fulton County, as we see here, is very, very blue. Very blue. Here are the results from an aggregator website. You see, presidency of the United States, Trump got 26% in Fulton County. Biden got 72.6. Whew. So a lot bigger margin, okay? 70 to 26, 72 to 26 for the blue team. And that same pattern showed up in the Senate, okay? 70% to 28% in Fulton County for John Ossoff, the Democrat senator from Georgia. So the numbers are huge. And so Fani's thrilled. Oh, perfect. Okay. This is going to be a lot of pressure on Judge McAfee to not do what needs to be done, the right thing in the court of law, forget about the court of public opinion, and remove her. But if he does, there might be some political consequences for him. He might be removed by the people of Georgia, although he might be removed from the people of Georgia anyways, just based on the candidates, right? Remember, he was appointed by a Republican governor, Governor Kemp, and this guy will run as a Democrat in a 70 to 30, 70 to 20, whatever the numbers are split there in Fulton County. So Fani just got done signing the ballot. She's running again, very excited about this. Here is what she sounded like when she came out.
Excited!
Hi there. Can I talk to you real quick?
Yes.
First, let me ask you about qualifying. Tell us what it means to you.
It means everything. I didn't think it would be as exciting, but it turns out the second time is still a charm, and I'm really excited. I've said it before, being the district attorney in Fulton County is the greatest honor of my entire life. I love this community. It's my home. It's where I raise my children. It's where I want to keep safe. I'm honored to serve. I'm honored for just the outpouring of support that I continue to get. And I am so excited to be here again today. I feel giddy.
What's your perspective on the efforts, particularly in the Georgia Senate, by Republicans to reprimand you, to scrutinize you, to investigate you?
I think it's all just a political quest. I think that people are angry because I'm going to do the right thing and I'm going to stand up for justice, no matter who is the person that may have done wrong in Fulton County. And so they can continue on with their games, and I'm going to continue to do the work of the people.
If you're called before the committee, will you appear?
I will discuss that with my lawyer, and me and my lawyer will make a decision, and whatever decision he advises is the best, I'll make.
Did you watch the hearing this morning?
I did not get to see all of it. I had pieces that people were watching, but no, I didn't have time to sit for 3.5 hours, I understand, and went and watch. I did not.
What's your message
sure.
to the prospective challengers who might run against you on the Republican or Democratic side?
I think this is a democracy we live in, right? So people have a right
It's a republic.
to run for office, but they should come prepared for a fight. They should know that my heart is still in this work. My heart will continue to be in this work, and I intend to be the DA for the next 4 years and 9 months.
Judge McAfee could rule at any moment. Are you feeling confident in your defense of this motion to disqualify the case?
That's where I don't want to comment because it's comedy on an active case, and so
Ridiculous.
I don't want to comment. But I think we presented the law, and I'm always hopeful that a judge will make a decision that is in line with the law.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, so you see Fannie says she's not going to comment on this stuff now, even though she commented a lot on this stuff when she was in her church twice, multiple times. Now she doesn't want to comment on it. And I don't know what they gave her, man, but she's very happy. I don't know if they pumped her full of antidepressants or whatever, or maybe she just had a real good night with Nathan last night, you know, when he went over there at 4 a.m. So something's going on. She's feeling happy about it. And it might be because there's a contender against Judge McAfee, who's very likely, you know, if you just look at the demographics, look at the voting patterns between Democrats and Republicans there, it's going to be a tough race anyways. Now you bring in this guy who's going to really, you know, I think shine a bunch of energy on this and cause, you know, maybe some momentum for Fannie, rally around her, say these Republicans, which Fannie has already said are racist and sexist, remember, multiple times. They're the ones responsible for this. They put pressure on McAfee. He doesn't make a decision, or he does make a decision, and it is something that angers a certain portion of Fulton County, and so he gets booted off the case. So we'll see what happens, but Fannie, I think she has just a total sense of arrogance about her that she doesn't even realize what's been done here. There is evidence, in my opinion, well beyond a reasonable doubt that she committed a felony by lying to the court, perjury, and that there are people now inquiring into what is exactly happening. And so we have reaction on this. Megyn Kelly was out. She had a very good take on it. I think it's dead accurate. Says, this is terrible news for the Trump team in Atlanta. Judge McAfee was running unopposed. Now you get a Jesse Jackson disciple challenging him in a district that went 73% for Biden. McAfee's going to need a rock-solid spine to disqualify Fannie Willis now. But you know what? Some people say he does have that rock-solid spine. And we also see some other trends, right? Georgia is leaning Trump red in 2024. Now, is that going to overcome Fulton County? I'm not so sure that it will, because that's still a very, very blue county, as we saw. So betgeorgia.com analyzed 3 current polls to develop the odds about how the state will vote this November, and it's looking pretty red over there. So maybe this, you know, Fannie support is nothing but a facade. But here is Steve Sadow, Trump's attorney. Man, he came out and he had some reaction to this, and here's what he says. He posted this. He says, you know, in our democracy, anyone can choose to run for public office. But does anyone following the Willis and Wade Fulton County fiasco really believe it is a coincidence that this particular gentleman, Robert Patillo, has been chosen to run against Judge McAfee? You think it's a coincidence? I don't. And if choosing this particular judicial candidate is intended by the pro-Willis faction to put political pressure on the court to rule in her favor, Steve says, I truly believe they completely underestimate the character of Judge McAfee. We sure hope he's right. And he says also, I guess this shows how impartial and unbiased Mr. Patillo would be in President Trump's Fulton County case. Here's what Robert Patillo posted online. Says, y'all, these judgments got Trump so broke, he's selling Chinese bootleg uptowns. He calls them air treasons when you've got to run, right? Hilarious. So that's going to be the judge, right? That's going to be the new judge that is running against Fannie. And apparently, you know, we'll see if Fulton County wants more torch cars in their county and in their state. But McAfee gets an election challenger, and it is seemingly something that might change the balance of power here, might change the whole equation. Now, my hope and my optimism is that McAfee is more interested in the court of law than the court of public opinion. And there may be some good upside to that, right? If McAfee makes the right decision but is disqualified, it may mean that he has integrity and another Republican can appoint him, or he can run again later down the line, or maybe Trump wins the White House and appoints him to federal court. How about that? So, of course, we're going to be here continuing to cover all the Trump litigation, my friends, including the Fannie saga. And so thank you for subscribing and liking this video wherever it is you're watching it. We'll see you back here on the next one. Now, let's check in on the Zoom link. So we are checking the Zoom links, and the Zoom link is still not working. As I was queuing this up, it says it's an invalid link. Invalid meeting. Rah! All right, so we're going to see if we can find if this is playing on any of the news stations. If anybody has eyeballs on a link that is working, that would be extremely helpful. but I do not find that there is an actual link at the moment. So let's see what's happening. Let's see if 11 Alive has anything. Hey, so 11 Alive, we're checking 11 Alive. Usually they've got some streams and some videos. So let's see if they've got anything on their channel that's queued up. There is nothing live over there. Hopefully we have something good. So we'll just keep waiting around, my friends. See if they turn it on, and we'll just keep checking the links. Yeah, again, invalid meeting ID. Yeah, maybe Fanny deleted a couple lines out of the Zoom meeting link. You know how that works? But I was wondering if they would just send, if 11 Alive would send a camera in there so that we could see what's happening. But it doesn't look like there is. All right, so we're going to keep hanging out, and we'll say hello. We'll give it a couple minutes, and we'll refresh the tubes. But let's say hello. Let's see who is joining us on this beautiful day as we wait. It's an amazing day. They said it was canceled. Someone said this was canceled. Sandy says, rumor here in Atlanta. Let's see. Hopefully it wasn't canceled. Let's see if, like, Fox News has it. Let's see if someone else has it. And I definitely tried it using the Zoom. So here, let's try it together, shall we? Let's try this together. So if we go here, hopefully the feds didn't hack the tubes. All right, so if we're going to join a meeting, all right, join a meeting. Let's try it this way, shall we? We're going to copy that one. Join that meeting right there. Meeting ID. We're going to say the link is not broken. Let's join. Oh, invalid. Invalid. Punks. All right, so can't join it that way either. All right, let's see if we have any Fox News updates. If they're streaming it. Yeah. It was on the schedule. Oh, we got Joe Biden's State of the Union coming up too. That's tonight. Oh, that's going to be terrible. The only real reason to watch that is because you don't really know what's going to happen. You know, he might trip over a sandbag again. All right. So, yeah, still invalid. All right. So while we're waiting for this to kick in, a couple of reports on X are saying that the board doesn't have jurisdiction. Let's see. Hopefully it wasn't canceled. That'll be very irritating. If it is canceled, we got a backup plan. I had a feeling that there's might be something wonky or something might go askew here, or it might be very short. So we do have, yeah, so we had Phil Holloway was tuning in. So shout out to Phil Holloway. And Doug Reardon. Wow, look at this. Okay, my friends, it might be canceled. Oh, look at this. Doug Reardon says the Fulton County Board of Ethics was set to hear 2 citizen complaints against Fannie Willis today at 10 a.m. When we showed up here, Doug Reardon is there. He is a reporter from ATL News First. And he says, when we showed up, we were told the complaints were abruptly removed from the agenda. CNBC TV 18. Let me check that. Waiting on an announcement from the board on exactly what happened. Wow. All right. So let's see what Doug Reardon is up to. They pulled him off. Wild. All right. Yep. He sent me the link. Is it working? Let me see here. Fulton County. Hey, thank you for that. Fulton Government TV. Hey, man. Hey, guys. If you're not already following Potentially Criminal, man, you should be. He's awesome. All right, so he just sent us this
animal.
Link.
What's going on? What is your history with this pet?
All right, he sent this link.
That allows allows us to determine what.
which right now they're talking about the Animal Welfare Board.
For a microchip, always, because sometimes there's some trickery, and we want to make sure that this is actually the owner of the animal.
All right, so we'll check back on that. Fulton County Government TV. We'll see if they flip over. And so, my friends, make sure you're saying thank you to Potentially Criminal on that one. If you're not already following this dude, he's great. He is at LawTube Sean on X. He's also on YouTube's. He does a great job. He's a criminal defense attorney, and he's in Ohio. So shout out to Potentially Criminal. Thank you for that. And let's see. Let's try to find, someone else was saying CNBC might have it. So let me see if there's anything up there. I think it might be done based on that report. There's a lot of channels like TV18. Here, let me see if this one has it. Yeah, so for example, there's a lot of these channels on YouTube that are just spam. It's wild. So I don't think this is CNBC at all. They got 2 million subscribers. It's crazy. So they say this is live, but that was live yesterday. They just keep it live and they, get a bunch of subs that way. So we may not have a hearing, my friends. Oh my goodness. Scandals afoot. Doug Reardon, when we showed up, we were told that complaints were removed from the agenda. Wild, right? All right, so let's see. We're going to try to see if we can grab some other details. And let me share that with the dudes. Let me share that with Good Logic and Potentially Criminal. We're all trying to figure out what the heck's going on here. Yeah, they rigged it. They rigged the election. They rigged the hearing, the Board of Elections hearing. All right, so let's check this. We're going to see. Here's another one. Cartier shared this link. Wow. Wow. Yeah, we're not going to have a hearing today. These punks. All right, that's okay. We got filings to read through. So we have a bunch of stuff that we're going to get to today. We're going to spend extra time on the filings, which we're going to get to in a minute. But look what they did. Look what they did. David Wickert also says, the Fulton County Board of Ethics will not hear 2 Fani Willis complaints. The board apparently has determined it does not have jurisdiction over Willis, a state constitutional officer. Isn't that fun? Man, so talk about this political pressure that's happening right now. Yep, and Anna Bauer is also confirming this. What's up, Anna Bauer says the Fulton County Board of Ethics was set to hear 2 ethics complaints filed against Fani Willis, but per David Wickert, the board has determined no jurisdiction. So we will not be having a Board of Ethics hearing today. Isn't that convenient? I wonder how that happened. All right. So that's a total scam, right? All these people, everybody's so afraid to do anything about it. So Fani is, you can see, right? No wonder she came out there like the Kool-Aid guy. I'm ready to testify. Oh, yeah. And she came busting through that wall. Well, it's because she probably knows she's got most of the county locked up. So I don't think it's going to be happening today. What a total joke. Yeah. They don't have jurisdictions. Yeah, you're right about that. Nathan N810 says, well, they don't have jurisdiction because they don't have ethics, right? Like, oh no, this is for people who think they have ethics. And we ask if you violated those ethics and you have no ethics. So we don't have jurisdiction over you. Crazy. All right, so let's get some reaction on this, my friends. And then, of course, we got some filings to get to. So I was a little bit curious. I was a little, I thought that there might be something screwy today. And so we have several filings to get to. So coming up, we have Fani Willis. She filed a last-minute brief defending herself in front of Judge McAfee. And Steve Sadow issued an initial reply. And we're also going to read through Jeffrey Clark and his motion because he just submitted a whopper of a filing as well, pointing out the 6 conflicts of interest that exist in the Fani Willis case. So we are going to be retweeting, reposting. Sorry, Elon, don't ban me. Reposting a couple of these things so that everybody's aware that this hearing is not happening. All right, so let's see if even the
For
government.
years, we didn't operate as a food bank, but since the
Yeah.
pandemic, food has become a top priority. So,
All right, so yep, nothing happening over there. Weird how that works. Isn't that weird? You can see all the mechanics of our disgusting government just working behind the scenes. Somebody says, you don't have jurisdiction. They go, we don't have jurisdiction. Perfect. That's a great excuse. Let's get it off. You know, I'm curious about, now that we're here, I'm curious about who these people are on this board. All right, so who are some of these people? So on June 7th, let's see who these people are. Okay, we know these people are definitely on the board. So let's see, Daraka Satcher. Let's see if we can find out who that is. Who are these people who decided they don't have jurisdiction? Okay, so Daraka Satcher is, I think it's maybe this guy. This says Ohio River. Okay, I don't know who that guy is. Oh, actually, hey, hang on a second. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, so yeah, interesting people. All right, now I'm having a difficult time looking all these up in real time for whatever reason. But okay, my friends, let's hear from you. Let's see what you say about this. We are then going to jump into the filings because we got some good filings, Jeffrey Clark and some others. But what do you say about all of this? Kind of ridiculous, is it not? Pretty ridiculous. Yeah, Bobby Burris says, everyone knows Fannie is so happy. Why? Because the fix is in. It's crazy. And they are doing it right now. Hey, let's see what else we got. Okay, so we got some comments in the House. And let's start down here. Yeah, Chubby says, yeah, so basically Fannie is not held accountable by anybody except McAfee. No wonder she's endorsing this opponent who just appeared out of nowhere, seemingly after the filing deadline. Yeah, it all happened. Okay, so my friends, we're going to come back to the comments. Let's jump into some of these filings because we definitely got to get some of this stuff done and out of the way. But let's just confirm one more time before we move on that there is no Zoom happening right now. And we're going to try it once more just to see if they opened it up. Yeah, so the meeting ID is still dead. Still dead. Here's what it says. So still off. But that's all right. We've got some filings that we need to read through. And so let's go ahead and do it. Shall we? Fannie files a last-minute brief, panicked that Judge McAfee is going to disqualify her and end her entire political career. And we're going to go through it and also take a look at Trump's initial reply. Steve Sadow called this out in his reply back to her, saying, I got more to say about this, but we're just going to leave it here for now. So here's what Fannie sent in to Fulton County. And this is after all of the additional affidavits have come in, all of the additional notices. Remember, we've got other people. We have a law professor who says that, yeah, Terrence Bradley lied, told me something differently. We also have a prosecutor who's a current prosecutor in Cobb County, one county over, says that Fannie Willis called Terrence Bradley on the phone and said, don't talk to them because they're coming after us, and basically shut your mouth. And Terrence Bradley felt freaked out about all of that. We also have the cell phone records that got submitted showing that these two were indicting each other at all hours of the night, and including spending the night, going over there at 11, leaving at 4 in the morning, spending the night at Fannie's residence, all well before they admitted that their relationship started in 2022, which means they perjured themselves. So this is what Fannie is submitting to try to escape any culpability for her disgusting misdeeds. And she sent this in to Fulton County Judge McAfee, who now has a challenger. This is what Fannie wrote. She says, all right, Judge, at the hearing back on March 1st, concerning Trump's and Michael Roman's and Ashley Merchant's and their motions to disqualify Fannie, we covered that hearing. It was a wild one. The court, you, Judge, you posed several questions to the parties concerning the standard of proof that's required for disqualification. And this is a matter of first impression. We don't know what the actual deadline or what the actual standards are. What are the elements that justify disqualifying someone? And the legal standard that's to be applied by the court. the binding case law in Georgia is clear, they say. A trial court is not authorized to disqualify an elected DA absent showing, quote, by a high standard of proof. And when we talk about standard of proofs, we talk about different standards like preponderance of the evidence, which is 51% likely. We talk about clear and convincing evidence, which is maybe a little higher than that. We also talk about beyond a reasonable doubt. Right there. And the standards get higher. So think about this like as 90% or 80%, right? If you have any doubt that's based in reason, then that person is not guilty. So it's a very high standard. Whereas preponderance of the evidence is kind of like a balancing test. If it's more likely than not. If it's 51% or higher, then that's enough. And this is often what you'll see in civil traffic cases. So yeah, it's more likely than not. Cop says you did it. You say you didn't. You got a reason to lie. He doesn't. He's got training. You don't. Okay, more likely than not, you're guilty. So what Fannie's arguing for is something higher than this, obviously. Much higher. Now, we don't know what she's saying. We'll see if she gets there. But something higher than that, and there are other standards in between. But the point is, where do we end up? And that's just the burden of proof. But what is also the rules? What is this legal standards? Like there are check boxes to say, you know, if you get a DUI, you got to be, for example, driving a car. Okay, blood alcohol has to be above a certain limit. You got to be, you know, and so on. Check all the boxes, actual physical control, and within the city limits, within the jurisdiction of the court, blah, blah, blah. All the things. So what are the check boxes? And in order to check those boxes, what is the legal burden of proof that needs to apply? So Fannie says it's got to be much higher. And so high that the DA either has an actual conflict of interest, so not an appearance of impropriety. She's arguing for a lower, in other words, stricter rules, and has engaged in forensic misconduct. And they cite case law. They say this brief will not examine the legal standard about forensic misconduct, which was already covered extensively. Yeah, Adam Abate, who wrote this motion? Adam Abate had his stupid PowerPoint slides that were drafted in Calibri, a default font. He was so insulting to his audience that he didn't even change the font. And so Will Wooten wrote this one. Adam Abate still, you know, icing his forehead after the last brain drain that he put us through. So they say, we're not going to engage in this. It does not. It was already covered. The state maintains that the evidence does not even come close to establishing that Fannie's statements were part of a calculated plan, evincing a design to prejudice the defendant in the mind of the jurors. No prosecutor in Georgia has ever been disqualified from prosecuting any case on grounds of forensic misconduct, and this case should not be the first. Isn't that crazy? So prosecutors, they have such a benefit of the doubt. They get away with basically everything, which is why when we're talking about disqualifying Fannie, it's like, wow. The DA of Fulton County in a national case, it's a tall order because they get every benefit, right? It's honestly wild. Prosecutors can commit crimes almost and do and not even get away with it. In fact, we'll see what happens to Fannie, who obviously committed perjury in court. So this is where it continues. Fannie writes, this brief will address that standard of proof recently recognized in Georgia and a few circumstances recognized under Georgia law. Now, as a threshold matter, the elected DA, Big Fannie, is not merely any prosecuting attorney. She's a constitutional officer. And there is only one such officer in each judicial circuit. So it sounds like that Board of Ethics really only can maybe deal with employees, right? But not officers. Maybe it's a separation of powers argument that they're going to get into. Now, under Georgia's Constitution, Big Fannie is constitutionally mandated to represent the state in all criminal cases. Here, Fannie seeks to only do that. She wants to perform her solemn duties under the Constitution. But the defense, Mike Roman, Ashley Merchant, and Donald Trump, they ask the court to impose a novel hair trigger standard, which I don't think that's true at all. It's not like any misconduct or $1. It's a totality type of standard, and the indicia add up to it. They say no standard exists here. The true legal standard that they say is clear, that's already set forth by the appellate courts and is confirmed in the statutory language, is much higher. It requires actual, palpable conflict of interest with a substantial basis in fact. And it's like, look, okay, even if you say that's true, even if you come back and say, that is that is the standard. In other words, like I'm not agreeing that that is the standard, but if it is, they clearly met that. There is a conflict there in the benefits that Fannie had. They covered it up. They lied about it. They lied in court about it. They lied on their interrogatories about it. She lied on her gift forms about it. And she paid him $700,000 margins that are much bigger than any of the other two attorneys on there. And there is multiple bits of evidence showing that they lied in their affidavit, that their relationship started in 2019 at the judicial conference. Robin Yurdy testified about that before he forgot everything. Terrence Bradley told that to multiple people, including the law professor, including another prosecutor, including Ashley Merchant in text messages. So there is a clear conflict. They even know there's a conflict because of the cover-up. If there wasn't a conflict, then there would be no reason to cover it up because it would be above board. Now, the standard is high, says Fannie, for a reason. The public's interest in seeking justice is in no way served by a low standard that would allow them to invalidate, here you go, the public's choice in their elected DA. And if McAfee punts this, right, that's probably going to be a big basis for it. Where we have these two levels that we're playing in, the court of law and the court of public opinion. If he decides maybe that the public opinion pressure is the appropriate forum, I could easily see him doing this. Say this was this conduct appears to me to be egregious, but we have to take Fannie's word against other people's word, and she's not credible and they're not credible. And so what I can do is just rely on the process. And so the process presented this case to a grand jury, which are voters in Georgia, and they made the decision on their own to indict this man. And so he's been indicted. And now the case is pending. And even though this conduct appears to be unbecoming of a district attorney, I do believe that it is something that has ended. They've said it's ended. We've seen no evidence that it hasn't ended. And they did this in a way that was not impactful, not material to the underlying case. And so it's not my place, it's not the jurisdiction of this court to make a decision on this. It is my role to adhere to the process. And if anybody wants to bring up any of this stuff in trial, they can, right? Cross-examine the defense or cross-examine the government's witnesses about this. And then we'll let the jurors decide. So the people selected Fannie, and the people can elect Fannie, and the people can decide, and the people already decided at the grand. And so I'm the judge. I'm just going to set it all aside. It's like, oh gosh, right? Make you want to vomit, but you can feel it. You can see, right, how that could happen clearly. And they're persuading the judge with this piece. The people, you're gonna disqualify a black female in Fulton County, the most powerful DA in the whole state. Come on. Big deal when it's 73% Biden and 30% red. And that's not my argument. That's their argument, right? That Fannie has made this all about race from the beginning, race and God and sexism. So selected by the people to carry out our essential constitutional duties. And our state Supreme Court reinforced this high standard just weeks ago. Says all criminal defendants, this is Fannie writing, have certain rights that must be protected by our justice system, but among them is neither the right to be tried by a prosecutor of his choosing. Again, nobody has made this argument. This is such a fake premise. Nobody cares who the next prosecutor is. It's just not Fannie, because she is disqualified because she is conflicted off and clearly biased, paying her lover to continue the prosecution. If Nathan Wade did the right thing and told Fannie, his lover, said, listen, baby, I love you, but you're a little crazy on this one, okay? You got to dismiss this case. There's no evidence here. What do you want me to do with this? Then Fannie would say, yeah, but what about our cruise coming up in March? He's like, oh yeah, I'm getting paid by you. So if I dismiss this case, I'm not going to get that money to take you to Napa Valley. So this is not what anyone has asked for. Once Fannie's off the case, you're right. Who cares who it goes to? But it's not her. And nor the right to delay his prosecution for no good reason. Another stupid citation. Yeah, you got to have good cause, of course, but it's not a delay. It's a continuance. Now, inappropriate or improper disqualification of a DA like Fannie that's elected by the people of this county. See that? We're going to have a lot of this, like democracy. And constitutionally mandated to represent the state in all criminal cases has severe consequences, both for the people's faith in their constitutional right to be represented by a DA that they elected, and for the public's confidence in our system of justice, which is wild that they would even put that in a right. Like, they would write that on behalf of Fulton County with a straight face. They shattered the confidence in the justice system through and through. For the reasons set forth, they say Trump's motion to dismiss this indictment should be denied. They say, first of all, Trump and Michael Roman and Ashley Merchant, they bear the burden of proving this by a high standard of proof. They say it is the burden of the party that is seeking to disqualify to prove that it's warranted. True. And that's why we saw this kind of feel like the hearings flipped. We actually got it from originally, right? Prosecutors were prosecuting the defense, but because they moved to disqualify, the defense moved. It flipped all of this. And so it felt like the prosecutors were being prosecuted and the defense was the prosecution. But that obviously is not the case. It just flipped things for this hearing and for this issue. So they say Georgia, the Court of Appeals, they recognize that a court considering a motion to disqualify must meet a high standard of proof. How high? At the hearing in this case, they urged the court to adopt a preponderance standard. So back up to our scale that we just drew out up there. It is the low one, 51%, more likely than not. You did it. Evidence tends to show you did it. You're guilty. You're liable. But they say under McGlynn, that cannot be the correct standard. So they say that they want the very low standard, but that cannot be correct. While not squarely addressed in the context of disqualification, they say Georgia have often categorized a clear and convincing showing of actual malice as a high standard of proof. So now they're going, I think it looks like probably a defamation case. So, you know, they're very shady and dishonest. I really don't like how they write this way. They tell us that it's kind of a clear-cut situation, but it's not. It's a case of first impression. And so they're picking out from defamation law to say that this is probably the better standard, right? More like a clear and convincing evidence standard that's a little bit in the middle. And they had to go to a defamation case because there's no case law on point in Georgia, but they keep pretending that there is. Moreover, the 11th Circuit has regularly and explicitly recognized that preponderance of the evidence, 51%, is not a high standard. It's low. It is low. Now, the state maintains that the defendants have not established an actual conflict of interest beyond a preponderance of the evidence. But even so, based on these cases, specifically the holding in McGlynn, that trial courts must hold them to a high standard of proof. So the court just said high standard, but they didn't tell us what standard. They said it should be higher than preponderance. So clear and convincing, or even beyond a reasonable doubt, that would be the high standard that Fannie would be thrilled about. Now, the defendants, they ask the court to rely on numerous cases. Ashley Merchant, and in this case, John Merchant, her husband, was out there testifying and explaining all this, says that there are cases that they cited, but those are misleading cases. And they actually support our position. They say the defense can point to no appellate case, because there is no case, where an elected DA was disqualified solely based on the appearance of conflict of interest or other appearance of impropriety. So they say that is the standard, like an absence of evidence is evidence of their point. So because no one else has been disqualified under this standard, you can't disqualify Fannie either. Indeed, if the case existed, it would have been brought to our attention. Well, and it might be because there wasn't ever a DA that had an actual conflict of interest, right? It's kind of insane that we have that. Like a DA is so corrupt that they have an actual conflict of interest, and we even need to have this discussion. Instead, the defense cobbled together flowery and righteous quotations from inapplicable cases that may sound enticing at first, but that entirely misstate the law in Georgia. And in doing so, the Trump defendants asked the court to adopt a novel legal standard for the disqualification of an elected constitutional officer. A lot of pressure on McAfee that has never before been recognized in Georgia and is contrary to decades of case law. They say there are 5 categories of these cases that they say. Cases that don't concern disqualification at all, but they use for flowery language. There are cases where the defense attorneys were disqualified on the basis of divided loyalty. And that's a different situation as well. But let's say a defendant, or there are like 3 different co-defendants and one lawyer represents all 3. Well, that could be a big problem, because what if the prosecutors tell that defense attorney, we want client A to testify against client C. Now you have an actual conflict because you've got 2 clients that now need to testify against each other, and that is not good for one attorney. So the general rule is you got to get off both cases. In violation, now there's other cases where a prosecutor had an actual personal interest or stake, which is exactly what Fannie has, or they say personal interest or stake in the outcome of a prosecution, which they want to say it's like in conviction. But of course they had a stake in even filing the indictment. Like, Nathan was getting paid for all the work. If he wasn't moving the case forward, then the case would have to be dismissed. And her interest is in the continuation, the continuity of the case, the creation of the case. It's not in the outcome of the case necessarily. The fact that it was created in the beginning causes Nathan Wade to be paid, causes her boyfriend to have funds to go on vacays with. And you don't want to travel alone. A benefit is having your significant other there. In fact, in tort law, when you lose your significant other, there's a claim called loss of consortium, because you get compensated for the loss of that companionship. So companionship is a real interest. And Fannie, of course, had that in spades, but I continue. Now, a single case where a defendant was denied a fundamentally fair trial, so we're going to see a lot of this language if the judge punts this. I don't think it's fundamentally unfair. In other words, the legal work was different from their personal work, and we can separate the 2 out. Where the DA had previously represented the victim in the case, and 5 cases where no actual conflict was shown and where disqualification was not proper. So the first category is the largest, and the court should categorically disregard them in the context of this motion. They say nothing about disqualification of an elected district attorney. So you're noticing all this language, right? Like the people, the election. This is the court's don't dump on democracy theory that they're trying to pursue here, which was very successful in 2020. Remember, we were here talking about all the election litigation and how frustrated we were that courts were not allowing them to move forward into actual discovery and into actual argument. But I think the basis was the judges were trying to find a reason, a way not to overturn the will of the people, right? Not to overturn what they believed, which in my opinion was rigged, but overturn the will of the people unilaterally. And so they're trying to tell the judge to do that too. Don't you dare overturn this thing. It's going to be major consequences for you. Now, cases, they say the second category of cases talks about criminal defense attorneys, right? And so defense attorneys are not elected constitutional officers. And so these cases simply do not apply to the disqualification of Big Fannie, who is a constitutional officer, whose loyalty lies with seeking justice. No, it does not. Give me a break. Seeking Nathan Wade's and Nathan's hot dogs there in Georgia, not with any individual or private client. They say the Georgia Supreme Court has upheld the disqualification of a criminal defense attorney who had previously been directly involved in the defendant's prosecution, including filing an application for search warrants, right? So the court held that the circumstances implicated 4 ethical rules. So this guy's a prosecutor. He starts prosecuting this guy, leaves the prosecutor's office, becomes a defense attorney, works with the same client that he started to prosecute. Yeah, that's obviously a problem. Now, specifically prohibited that representation because there was a significant risk that his duties to his former boss, which was the prosecutor, could adversely affect the representation. Now, how are they going to distinguish this? They say, yeah, these rules simply do not apply to the circumstances alleged, which is a total cop-out. So, yeah, like they're talking about defense attorneys, but standards still apply to defense attorneys. And we're asking ourselves about actual conflicts of interest. And so basically, this guy is saying you can only have cases that are blue triangles. Our case is a blue triangle, and so you can only reference case law that is also a blue triangle. And we say, well, it's not a blue triangle, it's a blue square, because we're talking about disqualification and removal. It's defense attorneys, it's not prosecutor, but it's blue. And they say, well, you have to only have blue triangles. We say, what there literally is not a blue triangle because no DA has been this corrupt before. So we have to use blue squares to be persuasive to say that, well, we treat blue things this way. So the remaining cases in this category, says Fannie, follow the same logic. In Edwards, a criminal defense attorney was properly disqualified. And we're, again, so a lawyer disqualified. Why? He previously represented the mother of the victim in the case. And neither Edwards nor the victim's mother gave consent to the conflict. So lawyer represents mom of someone who died. Someone gets charged in the killing. And the defense attorney also represents the defendant. So there's a conflict there. Now, defense attorneys were disqualified where members of the firms have also been previously employed as prosecutors and were substantially involved in earlier stages of the prosecutions. So you see, right? The point of this, I think this actually hurts them. I mean, the point is, even a tiny little relationship like that, right, which is the mother, which I guess it's not that tiny, but represented the mother of the victim. I don't know how long ago that was, if it was years ago, immediate, whatever. That means that he cannot represent the defendant in the case. And he may not even have known, right? May not even recognize that there was a relationship there. But that's the point, right? Conflict and bias, it's such a sensitive standard that if it's even a close call, you get off the case. If it's even close. They say in the context of this, courts have considered whether the facts create actual or serious conflicts. And it says a conflict exists if representing a client, if there is a substantial risks. Okay, look at the rules, even read the rules. If there is a substantial risk that the lawyer's own interest or duties to another client, a former client, or a third person will be materially or adversely affect the representation of a client. In the present case, Rule 1.7 is not implicated. A serious potential conflict of interest is insufficient to disqualify. So even the rules, like Fannie couldn't discipline Nathan as she could a normal employee because she was sleeping with him. She's got love for the dude. We saw her enamored with this guy when she was testifying on the stand in Fulton. So she's got a personal interest in him, in the prosecution, in him continuing to get paid. And we're going to see the defense respond to this in a minute. A defendant's conviction was reversed because his defense attorney accepted a job with the DA's office, right? That's a conflict. The record did not establish that he had disclosed this, and he asserted on appeal that his future employment would be affected by his decision-making. So all of that, right, is an actual conflict, and so that person had to be removed. Now, while that case also refers to, quote, an appearance of impropriety, it is factually distinct. And so we need an actual conflict, not an appearance of a conflict. The third category is saying that prosecutors got personal interests in the proceedings. This one was a civil asset forfeiture where they were paid on a contingency fee. We heard Ashley Merchant talk a lot about this one. Now, this case also refers to the appearance, okay? Appearance, not actual. Conflict of interest. It created, they say this case was ultimately decided on public policy grounds, not on conflict of interest grounds. So this case is inapplicable. You can't use it, defense, to support this, that the standard is just an appearance, not actual. So that reference is dicta, they say. They say the application of the standard was merely assumed and explicitly did not adopt it. Okay. Now, in the remaining cases in this category, they say disqualification was appropriate because there was an actual conflict, which I think there was an actual conflict here, but they don't. Special prosecutors were in a criminal contempt case. They were disqualified because the prosecutors also represented the plaintiff in a civil injunction. And they had the power of the prosecutor's office as a bargaining chip in their civil negotiations. Yeah. Just like Fannie has the power of her personal relationship over Nathan Wade, right? It's conflicted. And he does too. The Solicitor General was disqualified from prosecuting Nichols. And as this court also pointed out at the hearing, and these cases demonstrate to create disqualifying conflict of interest, a prosecutor's alleged, quote, personal benefit, it must be material. There must be some factual relationship, and we're going to see what Steve Sadow says about this, between the alleged benefit and the prosecutor's involvement in the case to show a personal stake or interest in the outcome of the proceedings, which I would say is the continuity of the proceedings, not necessarily the outcome. They get paid either way. Obviously, they want to win, but the indictment itself was the initiating moment, was the event that brought in the contract and brought in a bunch of money. Here, Trump has not even alleged, and certainly not proven, that the DA received any benefit contingent upon the outcome of this case, which I don't think is the point. The fact that if the case never came, then we wouldn't be here. So I guess it is contingent on you filing the case, but it's not contingent upon the outcome of the case. Again, whether they win or lose, Nathan Wade gets paid either way. And the only way that he does not get paid is if he dismisses this, because then he has nothing to bill against. So it is contingent upon the outcome of the case. If he dismisses this, if they turn around and dismiss this with prejudice and say there is no charges here, okay, then all this is moot. We'd agree with that. But it is contingent. It's contingent on the continuity of the case. A nebulous alleged benefit, it's not nebulous, is either not personal or two, not directly tied to the outcome of the case. Traditionally, the conviction of the defendant, which is what they say traditionally, so that's a little cope word right there. He realizes it's not the conviction. It's even the judge brought this up in the hearing, which is why this is dishonest. He said, okay, so like if it's a motion to suppress, is that enough? He says, well, yeah, you can't incentivize people on a motion to suppress. Okay, how about we back that up then? How about a motion? How about an indictment in the first place? Can you incentivize people on indictments? No, you can't. Well, that's what Fannie did. Sorry, that's what she did. She incentivized him to bring an indictment so that he could get paid. So there is a contingency there. He says it's not enough to warrant disqualification. I disagree. Now, disqualification is not appropriate where criminal charges have no factual connection whatsoever to the interest. They say otherwise, as this court observed at the hearing, any alleged improper personal benefit that Fannie got under any circumstance would disqualify her from prosecuting every case in which she signed her name to the indictment. And that is obviously an unworkable interpretation of the law. And that's a straw man. Okay, nobody made that argument. Nobody said that if Fannie Willis, takes a cookie from someone when she's, walking around a convention, oh, that's a cookie's a benefit. You're going to get disqualified from all your cases. That's not the argument. This is stuff that reaches a materiality, and it's a clear benefit that was given on the back of a criminal prosecution. That's where the conflict is, and we're going to see more about that. They say the fourth case is a single case. It concerns a defendant's right to a fair trial. In that case, the court held the defendant was charged with shooting her estranged husband. They said she was denied an unfair trial. Why? The DA had previously represented the husband in the divorce proceedings, and the DA was cognizant of information and incidents that occurred between the victim and knew about this for the divorce proceedings. And the DA sat at counsel's table for the entire trial. The court held that, public policy prohibits a DA from prosecuting a case while also representing the victim of the criminal act. And you can see how this stuff is kind of crossing the V. So you've got, the verses. You've got, party A versus party B. And a lot of these conflicts are crossing the table. So what Fannie is going to say is that our conflict was contained within one side. Our conflict didn't spill over into Donald Trump, which I think is basically what this argument is. But the facts and the legal principles in Davenport are too far remote to be applicable here. And the final category from Fannie's team says that they rely on cases where disqualification was not found to be proper. So a special prosecutor accepted future employment with a law firm, previously represented a prosecution witness, but that was not grounds for disqualification because no actual conflict was shown. They say Georgia Supreme Court has said that an actual conflict is required to warrant reversal for failure to disqualify. So that's a reversal standard after the conviction, right? This is post-conviction. And that's what I think Judge McAfee was talking about. This is pre-conviction, not post-conviction. Reversal. Now, not just the appearance. Now, a DA's office investigator also had a close personal friendship with the victim, said that was not grounds for disqualification. So the DA's office investigator had a relationship, right? That's not the prosecutor. And a prosecutor's statements to the media after a hung jury, again, saying the score is 35-1 for conviction. That did not amount to forensic misconduct either. And again, that's after the verdict. So all of these are after the verdict. So none of these cases suggest that a DA may be disqualified based on anything less than an actual conflict of interest. But those are after the verdict. Okay, it's a whole different category. So that's not what they're using them for. Anyways, we continue. They say multiple Georgia Supreme Court cases clearly establish that Georgia courts are not authorized to disqualify an elected DA absent an actual conflict of interest, they say. There are generally two recognized grounds for disqualifying. First is based on a conflict of interest. The second is forensic misconduct. So we got number one here, conflict of interest. Number two, forensic misconduct. Under Georgia law, conflicts of interest have only been found where a prosecutor previously represented the defendant with respect to the offenses charged. Okay, so that's again across the V. So A versus B. That is a prosecutor who is originally representing B. We'll call B the defendant. So the prosecutor's over here, but then he moves over here. So he crossed the V. And they're saying that has consulted with the defendant in a professional capacity where the prosecutor has acquired a personal interest or stake in the outcome of the proceedings. No other disqualifying conflict has ever been recognized under Georgia law. And moreover, as Georgia Supreme Court again reiterated less than a month ago, an actual conflict of interest is required. The trial court did not abuse its discretion by failing to disqualify them absent an actual conflict. They say, McAfee, Fannie's office, says this has been the unchanged law for decades. In another case, the Supreme Court also said that the trial court erred in disqualifying an attorney based on the appearance of impropriety that resulted from the fact that two lawyers representing the opposing parties in the matter were married. All right. So again, across the V, you got, one spouse, two lawyers representing both people. They're married. There's pillow talk. It's not good. The court recognized that although the issue has never been squarely addressed in Georgia, courts in other jurisdictions have rarely been willing to disqualify an attorney based on the appearance of impropriety alone, where there is no danger that the actual trial of the case will be tainted, which obviously this case will. Now, the court reversed the trial court and rejected the notion that trial courts are authorized to disqualify based on the appearance of impropriety. So again, they're saying the standard should be above clear and convincing, and it should be actual conflicts. They say the Georgia cases cited do not stand for the proposition that a trial judge is authorized to disqualify an attorney solely on the basis of an appearance of impropriety. So maybe not solely, but with other indicia. They say the court did not restrict its language here. And based on our reading of this case, no appellate case in this state has, before or since, ever authorized a trial judge to disqualify a prosecutor solely based on the appearance of a conflict of interest. And this concept is reinforced in other cases. In this other case, the court also reiterated that a theoretical or speculative conflict will not impugn a conviction, again, post-conviction case. Now, while Lamb did not involve the disqualification of a DA, they said there must be a palpable and substantial basis in fact. Do you feel that Fannie's misconduct is palpable, my friends? Gross. Decisions of the Georgia Court of Appeals are in accord. The court affirmed the trial court's denial of the motion, saying that there needs to be an actual conflict. Something that's theoretical or speculative is not sufficient. So we're almost done before we jump into some responses. But every Georgia case that has addressed this issue has reached the same conclusion. If you want to disqualify, it must be an actual conflict. No prosecutor has ever been disqualified on the appearance of a conflict. They say the cases set forth continue. Must be an actual conflict. And we are repeating ourselves here because they are. They say, hey, and by the way, we're sick and tired of Steve Sadow and him talking about Caesar's wife, okay, Julius Caesar's wife. He says references to Julius Caesar does not lessen the requirement. He says at the hearing on the matter, the court also referred to the occasionally invoked example of Caesar's wife, who's supposed to be beyond reproach. The language to which the court referred was first used in Nichols versus State. They said the administration of law, this is a quote from case law, the administration of law, and especially that of criminal law, should, like Caesar's wife, be above suspicion, should be free from all temptation, from all bias, from all prejudice, and so far as it is possible for our courts to accomplish. Now, the court noted this language and said whether it suggests that something less than an actual conflict of interest should be sufficient. But the state has not found any case that ever made such a holding. And Georgia went out of its way to reinforce that there are different standards. Shortly after quoting the Caesar's wife language, the court explained that if he were compelled to proceed with the same circumspection, there would be an end to the conviction of criminals. So if the standard is too low, then you can disqualify DAs for everything. And that becomes a bit difficult. They say this case also acknowledges the example of Caesar's wife, and it emphasizes that prosecutors are not held to the same standard as judges. Instead, prosecutors can only be disqualified in cases where they're acting in their own personal or individual interest rather than in the character of an officer and someone charged to perform a duty. And clearly Fannie was doing this, right? Appointing her boyfriend so she could hang out with him at their anti-corruption meetings and have multi-hour lunches with the man she loves. Sutherland also says that in an example of private prosecution, a contingency fee, it's not just about money. Contingency fees like personal injury cases, right? Personal injury case, you get a settlement. The attorney only gets paid if there's a settlement. They take a third or whatever it is of the fee. But that's an example of actual conflict. Now, indeed, every case the state has found involving disqualification of a prosecutor based on a personal stake or interest, that personal interest has consisted of the prosecutor enjoying money gain contingent upon the outcome of a criminal case. So the elements, right, the different checkboxes, they say it's got to be money. Without that personal interest, so having your boyfriend with you, going on the cruise is none of that. It's money. Only that is sufficient to displace a prosecutor. Now, for the reasons set forth, before we jump into Steve Sadow's response, they say this court should not disqualify Fannie, last minute filing skidding in here, because the court fails to demonstrate an actual conflict or forensic misconduct. And to whatever extent the defendants allege that the DA received a benefit, they have made no allegation. They've offered no evidence that she has any improper, direct, or material personal stake in the outcome of these proceedings. And it's in the continuity, right? It's in the prosecution in the first place, sufficient to authorize disqualification. The defendant's suggestions concerning what constitutes an improper personal stake or interest are both unsupported by law. The court rightly points this out. They're entirely unworkable. If you apply the actual legal standards as set forth in Georgia, there's only one outcome. The indictment should not be dismissed, and Fulton County and Big Fannie should not be disqualified. Signed by Fannie Willis's office, Adam Abate, you remember him, objection, privilege. John Will Wooten, sent into the court, and they are, as you can see, really, really trying hard to change the rules of the game to suit them. And we talked about these standards. They want it to be as high as possible, up near the beyond a reasonable doubt standard, 90%, 80%. And they also want these checkbox, the elements of the disqualification, whether it's actual conflict or impropriety, they want it to be more towards the actual conflict. So it's much harder to prove, much more checkboxes, much higher standard. And they're going to see if they can basically cajole Judge McAfee into doing it by floating around this language about the elected people of Fulton County and Georgia and democracy and all those things. Well, Steve Sadow responded to this, and it's only his initial response. Trump's defense submits an initial reply to Fannie Willis's last-minute attempt to state on this case. He says, all right, Your Honor, McAfee, President Trump's initial reply to that brief that we just read addresses only the argument on forensic misconduct, Steve Sadow writing. In a footnote on page 2 of its brief, Fannie says, they said, the evidence presented in this case does not even come close, says Fannie, to establishing that the DA's statements were part of a calculated plan, evincing a design to prejudice Trump and the defendants in the minds of potential jurors, and that's the standard that's required for forensic misconduct. They say no prosecutor in Georgia has ever been disqualified from prosecuting any case on grounds of forensic misconduct, and this case should not be the first. That's what Adam, Fannie, and Will all sent in. But Williams, they say, that case does not set that as the sole test for the standard or the standard for all types of forensic misconduct. Let me educate Will on what the law actually says. Here's what the case actually says from Steve. One of the primary examples of forensic misconduct consists of the improper expression by the prosecuting attorney of their personal belief in the defendant's guilt. Wow. The Williams case says that? Improper expression. Now, in determining whether an improper statement of the prosecutor as to the defendant's guilt requires his disqualification, the courts have taken into consideration whether those remarks were part of a calculated plan, evincing a design to prejudice the defendant in the minds of the jurors, and whether such remarks were inadvertent, albeit improper, utterances. So they left that out of their brief, didn't they? That's a pretty good opinion. And pretty good evidence there, because Fannie Willis talked at the church twice as part of her conspiracy to blame the co-defendants who were calling out her affair as racist and bigots. Says, our case, Judge McAfee, Steve Sadow writing on behalf of Trump, he says, our case implicates far more appalling and unforgivable types of forensic misconduct, like these. Deliberately stoking racial and religious prejudice against defense counsel, their lawyers, and the defendants, and testifying under oath untruthfully, lying to you, and committing fraud upon the tribunal, all done in the prosecution of the defense. How is that for an actual conflict or actual prosecutorial misconduct? In this case, forensic misconduct. It involves the elected district attorney, Fannie, wantonly playing both the race and the religious card in her extrajudicial MLK holiday church speech. That was part of a calculated plan to prejudice the defense counsel and the defendants in the minds of the Fulton County jurors. And two, Fannie Willis and her then lover that she hired, D.A. Wade, testified falsely in a hearing before this court on material factual issues. They lied about whether their personal relationship began before Wade was even hired. All false. Affidavit said relationship started in 2022. Robin Yurdy said 2019. Terrence Bradley said that too. In his text messages to Ashley, told a prosecutor that, and also told a law professor that. Now, the cell phone records corroborate that. So while the state claims that no prosecutor has ever been disqualified in Georgia for forensic misconduct, guess what? There's never been a Fannie before, okay? No prosecutor in Georgia, elected or otherwise, has engaged in misconduct like Willis or Wade have here. That's why you don't find any case law. Elected DAs, and whether she's a constitutional officer notwithstanding, the remedy must fit the misconduct. This court must not permit Willis and Wade to continue to prosecute this case. They have flouted and violated the Georgia Rules of Professional Conduct as lawyers, 3.3A1 and 3.8G. And to do otherwise will be viewed by the public and within the criminal justice system as an open license for prosecutors to engage in flagrant and egregious misconduct without repercussion or appropriate sanctions by the very court before which this misconduct occurred. Steve Sadow response says dismissal and disqualification are the appropriate remedies here, and we have chronicled it in depth. And so There are more responses to Fannie's brief, which of course we are going to get to. But Fannie files this last-minute brief trying to get Judge McAfee on his heels a bit, saying maybe I should apply their standard, maybe the burden of proof should be much higher, maybe the elements of the law require what Fannie says that they should require. And now that McAfee has a political contender who apparently is jumping into the fray, and we have new complexities entering the game, we'll see what he decides to do. Of course, we're going to be here covering this trial and all the rest of them, my friends. So if you're joining us, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for hitting that like button. Thanks for checking out some of the links down in the description below. We have our new calendar online at robertgovea.com. So if you want to check out what's coming up and add the calendar to your phone or to your work calendar, you can add the show. You can add all of the hearings that are coming up and all the Trump trials. Go to robertgovea.com, click the calendar tab, and you'll see it there. And we'll see it back here on our next one. All right, my friends. Now, we're not done here yet. We've got one final brief to read through before we jump into your questions and take your comments and see what you have to say about this. If you're just joining us, the hearing today, let's pause and see if there's any more updates on the hearing. Yeah, let's see what's going on. If there's any other updates, Board of Ethics, if we had any clarity. The hearing today was canceled, so it was on schedule. Yes, we do have a clip. Here's what Doug Reardon posted. The Board of Ethics determined it lacked jurisdiction over Willis, who is an elected state officer, unable to be ethically reviewed by a county board. Isn't that fun? They noted the investigations going on at the state level. So we're just county people. We can't field these complaints. This is a state level investigation, so we can't handle it. Here's what they said in their little conference room.
As a state constitutional officer, the district attorney is tasked with prosecuting and enforcing felony criminal laws on behalf of the state. The Fulton County Code of Ethics, our Code of Ethics, only applies to county officers and employees. The Fulton County District Attorney does not fall within the definition of a county officer as defined in the Ethics Code.
Makes sense, therefore,
So why'd you put her on the calendar then?
that we elect to decline the chance to rule one way or other regarding her actions.
All right, they don't want to get into it. They don't want to get involved in it, right? So they're just punting. Nope, we don't have jurisdiction. All right, so this is what the board looks like. And he's just reading from a statement. We can't handle this. Let everybody else deal with it. Hey, Good Logic's here. Shout out to Good Logic. He says, if Fannie Willis cannot be held to account for her suspected improprieties because of her status as a constitutional officer, because it puts her beyond the reach of the Board of Ethics, the only option left is for the Georgia state legislature to impeach her, to do something about that. Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do. So hearing did not take place because they got freaked out there at the board. Like, oh no, big Fannie, we're going to have to make a decision. We're probably all going to be caught in the middle of this crosshairs. And so they all didn't want to do anything or deal with it. So they just punted it down the road. Not a big surprise there, but very disappointing. We were looking forward to covering that today, but not going to be able to do that. However, we do have another good brief to read through, and so let's get into it. Jeffrey Clark, you remember him. He submitted a brief that is obliterating Fannie Willis and her last-ditch attempt to get Judge McAfee to rule in her favor, and this one is filled with some counterexamples to her brief. She says that the standard in the disqualification should be very high, much more than clear and convincing evidence, maybe even beyond a reasonable doubt. She didn't say that, but we know that's what she would ultimately want. And she also says it requires an actual conflict of interest. Says not the appearance of impropriety. That's not appropriate for disqualification, but we want much more. And Jeffrey Clark comes back out and says, oh, you want to know what your conflicts are? How about I tell you them? Here is what he submitted. Jeffrey Clark in the Fulton County courtroom, state of Georgia, he is submitting this in response to Fannie Willis's post-hearing brief. He tells us, all right, guess what, Judge McAfee? I'm here, and I'm submitting this reply to Big Fannie's arguments. She says that the standard of proof should be higher than preponderance of the evidence, not the low standard, 1 or 2 up, and that an actual conflict must be shown. And she says that there must be a personal money interest, a pecuniary interest in the conviction, which was like, well, that's crazy. Like, that's obviously not going to happen here. as distinguished from other stages of the proceedings, or a personal pecuniary interest in the prosecution as a general matter, which I think is the right box, and that the defense evidence is insufficient to meet these standards, right? He's going to say, this is why you are wrong. Now, before turning to the merits of Fannie's brief, it is necessary to observe, just to mark this down on the record, let's not forget this, that Fannie Willis has ratified the perjury of Nathan Wade. Nathan lied to the court in his affidavit. She signed the document, sent it in. It's her office. Very clear. They say, Your Honor, this is not even complicated, okay? Nathan Wade obviously lied under oath in his testimony on February 15th, obviously, when he was attempting to explain his obviously false interrogatory responses in his divorce case. He lied in the divorce proceedings. He said that his marriage had ended because he was not happily married. He's a lawyer. He knows better than this. That is an out and out lie. And everybody watching this knows that, right? Even the lefties, like, dude, come on. Like, you don't know that you're, like, the form is asking about affairs. Like, did you sleep with anyone else? No, I didn't. Why? I wasn't married. You're literally in the divorce, getting divorced. Your status is married. You are seeking an unmarried status. You're a lawyer. You're so smart that multiple people have hired you. And now Fannie says you're so qualified that you can handle a RICO case, but you can't be honest on your interrogatory forms. And he lied about it, right? That's it. Now, we are now 20 days past that testimony. Now, in that intervening period, the DA has said and done nothing whatsoever to either disavow Mr. Wade's perjured testimony and done nothing to require him to correct it. This is a spectacular breach before all of the world to see of her duty as the DA. She's got an obligation under the law to faithfully and impartially and without fear or favor or affection to discharge her duties as the DA. And she also has duties of candor to the tribunal under the rules of professional conduct. Saying the reason for this state of affairs is obvious, Judge. It is in Fannie's personal and her individual interests that Mr. Wade's perjury go uncorrected. Ms. Willis has ratified Mr. Wade's perjury by not repudiating it as her duty requires. Fannie's professional judgment has not merely been impaired by her conflicts. It has been corrupted beyond redemption. Saying, the state here argues in the filing we just read that a preponderance of the evidence standard is too low for disqualification of DA Fannie. At the hearing, Mr. Clark identified via his lawyer 6 separate categories of disqualifying conflicts of interest, only one of which is subject to any conflict in the evidence. So we're only debating one of these. The other 5 are clear and dry. Says the one category subject to a conflict in the evidence is the extent of the financial benefits that Fannie got from Wade. The evidence that Mr. Wade furnished Fannie with expensive travel and entertainment, they're there. They're in evidence. Their credit cards and their statements, and they're undisputed in their authenticity. They're real. Now, the contrary evidence that they proffer, Fannie and Wade, it relies entirely on a story about totally undocumented cash reimbursements that magically netted to zero. So on the one hand, we got credit card statements. On the other hand, we got this fake story from liars about cash. Weird. It all ended up going to zero, all balanced out, even Stevens. It relies entirely on the testimony of Mr. Wade, an obvious perjurer, lied, and Miss Willis, a witness with a motive to lie, whose testimony on the topic strange credulity, and whose credibility on other material issues has already been impeached. So considering the issues of credibility with all these people, the evidence is sufficient, showing under any standard of proof to find that DA Willis received prohibited gifts from Mr. Wade and has a disqualifying financial conflict of interest in the investigation and in the prosecution of this case. We expect other defendants will be rebutting the state's arguments on this point in greater detail. But moreover, importantly for purposes of this reply brief, the state, Fannie, makes no attempt to rebut any of the other grounds of the disqualification offered by us, Mr. Clark. Here are the other grounds that they don't even contest. DA Willis has personal and political ambitions, and this case is going to be a part of that. This is a complementary pattern of deceit, and it's concealment of the relationship and the money. She also gave the speech at the church. She also filed a motion for a protective order in Nathan Wade's divorce to cover that up. And the conduct of the state's defense during the motion to disqualify, all reprehensible. Now, these conflicts all rest on undisputed facts. Even the standard of proof, even if it were metaphysical certitude, like 100% certain, right? If you said that had to be the case, it would be met as to these 5 types of conflicts. Let's explain. They say the state next argues that an actual conflict of interest is required rather than an appearance of impropriety, and that the interest must be financial and that it must be in the conviction. But these are compound errors in their arguments. They say, first, Mr. Clark's argument at the hearing assumed the actual conflict standard applied, and he met them all. The state never even attempts to answer the argument that the evidence shows a half dozen actual, okay, they said it has to be an actual. They got 6 of them. 5 of them rely on undisputed facts. And second, Fannie attempts to disentangle what it claims are inopposite authorities that are relied upon by the defendants. But in doing so, it conflates the standards for disqualification of prosecutors with those for post-conviction. We saw that. Based on a claim of ineffective assistance of counsel, right? So the defendants come back and they say, my client did a bad job. Why? He had a conflict. Okay. So can you reverse the conviction on that basis? It's a much higher standard. That was the latter type of case where the defendant, who didn't even raise any objection at trial, was required to show that the conflict, right? The conflict impacted the lawyer's performance and gave him effectively no counsel. So they say they agree. While criminal defendants are not entitled to pick their prosecutor, they are entitled to an unconflicted, disinterested prosecutor who does not operate in violation of their oath. In another case, the court held, Supreme Court case, that the requirement of a disinterested prosecutor is consistent with that trend. Since any scheme injecting a personal interest, whether it's financial or otherwise, into the enforcement process may bring irrelevant or impermissible factors into the prosecution decision. They say, look, as evidence for this trend, the court in footnote 19 cited to another case saying that the proposition that the appointment of an interested prosecutor was a due process violation. You can't appoint someone to just go after somebody. That violates your due process rights. Unlike the post-conviction conversation we had this regarding Sixth Amendment ineffective assistance of counsel, they say that's post-conviction. What about pre-conviction? If the assigned prosecutor has acquired a personal interest or stake in the conviction, the trial court abuses its discretion in denying a motion to disqualify him. And the defendant is entitled to a new trial, even without the showing of prejudice. That is a damning citation against them. Now, they'll turn around and say it's only about conviction, but of course, it's the process that leads to the conviction. Thus, if the disqualification motions are denied and an appellate court finds that the DA should have been disqualified, then any defendant convicted would be entitled to a new trial without showing any prejudice. Now, the state also argues that the only interest which is disqualifying is a personal interest in a conviction, and that ignores the prosecutor's duty under the law to be impartial in every action they take, not just the conviction. It's every official act, not just a conviction. They say the whole proceeding from the time the case is laid down before him, where an indictment is demanded, right, where an indictment is demanded until the rendition of the verdict, it's under his direction, supervision, and control throughout the entire time. Now, the enforcement process has a milestone at the point of conviction, but the process obviously begins earlier than that, at the investigation before even the indictment. So additionally, it continues to sentencing and even arguably to post-conviction as well. So they want to narrow the hula hoop to only make it about an interest in the conviction. He's like, well, we don't care if he's convicted or not. We don't make any more money if we go to trial and he wins or loses. No, but you made all the money in the run up to it. In another case, presented to the grand jury, right? Go all the way back, as it did in this case. Fannie and Wade were indicting each other back when they were presenting to the grand jury. Here, Mr. Wade was paid over $650,000 over the 2-year period, beginning long before the indictment and long before any conviction. And Fanny got a bunch of gifts during the and wouldn't have gotten any of that money and wouldn't have been able to go on cruises with his girlfriend. The state's suggestion that this does not matter because the interest must be in the conviction alone should be rejected, because it is premised on the false notion that prosecutors have no duties of impartiality at any other time other than, I guess, trial. Now, the state argues that it has found no cases of disqualification based on a personal interest that did not involve a pecuniary money interest in the conviction. But apparently they have failed to notice one of the principal authorities relied upon by us. In McLaughlin, there were not one, but two non-pecuniary, non-money interests that required the disqualification. The first was a conflict between the DA's duties as a witness and as an advocate, and the second was that his daughter's close relationship to the victim gave him a personal interest in the case. So father is a prosecutor, father's prosecuting a defendant, defendant killed someone or hurt someone. Father prosecutor's daughter knows the person who got hurt. Father is prosecuting very aggressively because maybe he has a relationship with his daughter, or maybe he's not changing anything, but just the fact that his daughter knew the victim may have made dad wanted to go get revenge. So this, and that was not good, right? That's not good. If you have a personal interest, just like you have in your boyfriend or your girlfriend, not good. The state's argument about what Georgia law regards as disqualifying is without merit because it's contrary to binding Supreme Court authority. And lastly, says Jeffrey Clark, the state makes frequent reference to DA's status as an elected constitutional officer, referring to her as being elected. Wow, I didn't count this, but they did. 20 times in the brief. I thought it was a lot. It felt like they were really pushing that button, didn't it? But I didn't realize it was 20 times. Elected. People of Fulton elected. Yeah, we know. The state suggests that her status as, quote, elected should make the court more reluctant to disqualify her. But no, in fact, however, Miss Willis's status as the elected subjects her to elevated, okay, not a lesser standard of conduct than that of Caesar's wife. And we talk about a standard of conduct, right? Like a surgeon is going to be expected to perform an operation on you with a lot more care and precision than I would. Right? You just give me a butcher knife and a spoon, and we'll see if we can remove that. You know what I'm saying? Let's go. It's going to be different. Probably going to have a different experience with me than someone else. So your level of care, your standard of conduct is basically that of a reasonable person in that position. And Fanny is in the highest position. So her conduct should be measured against the strictest of scrutinies, right? The highest of standards, or held to the highest of standards. And she's falling way below that. So Clark continues. He says, a lawyer's conflict of interest is not waivable and is disqualifying when it impairs the lawyer's professional judgment. Look at the rules. Everything that Fanny and Wade have done in this case in response to the motions has demonstrated profound impairment of her professional judgment. Doubling down on lies, suborning perjury from Terrence Bradley. The first response of the state when they filed the motion, she went to the church, Big Bethel, and she violated her public duty as an officer, as a prosecutor under the law. She advanced her own personal interest and those of Mr. Wade, and an actualized conflict in which she preferred her personal interest to the detriment of her professional responsibilities. Went out and called everybody racist and sexist and said God is on her side. Now, the second response was the motion for a protective order. She filed this in Mr. Wade's divorce. And she basically threatened Jocelyn and the defense with interfering with her prosecution, like another crime. In that filing, the DA violated the rules of professional conduct. She abused the power of her office to threaten her boyfriend's wife. Fanny threatened her boyfriend's wife with criminal prosecution to gain an advantage for herself and her boyfriend in her boyfriend's divorce. Didn't work out. This is an actualized conflict. Okay, her personal responsibilities are usurping her professional responsibilities. She advanced her personal interest to the detriment of her professional duties. Why is she interfering as the DA in her boyfriend's divorce? The heck is that? That's a clearly personal thing. Her third response was the written filing on February 2nd. In this case, she stated unequivocally, she said there was no evidence that she received any financial benefit from Mr. Wade. No evidence. That's what she said. That was totally false. The state knew it was false because it came 2 weeks after Mrs. Wade filed a response to Mrs. Willis's motion for protective orders. And they attached copies of Mr. Wade's credit card statements showing he spent over $10,000 on travel. So there was evidence, and the state knew there was evidence, and Willis still lied to the court. This was a filing that prompted intense national news coverage that surely came to her office. So she did know, in fact, that there was at least some evidence. This was another actualized conflict between DA Willis's personal interest in concealment and cover-up and her office's public duties of candor and impartiality. She lied again. The fourth response was falsely accusing Miss Ashley Merchant, superhero defense attorney in Georgia, of making knowingly false allegations against DA Willis and Wade, and said that there should be sanctions for her from Adam, her own prosecutors. The fifth response from Fannie was to allow Mr. Wade to tell ridiculous lies on the stand about his false interrogatory responses and then fail to correct his own perjured testimony. The DA's office, they say this was a flagrant violation of her office and her entire team duties of candor. They should have told the court that this dude was lying. You can't cover up for a liar. They breached their public duties to serve the private interest of Wade and Willis. They say, we note here that the lead counsel for the state in defending the motions to dismiss and disqualify, Anna Cross, wow, they noticed what we've noticed. Anna Cross has disappeared from the case. Where'd she go? She did not attend the last 2 days of the hearing and is not even CC'd on the state's courtesy copy emails to the court and to counsel. So Anna Cross got the boot or left. Don't know where she went, but she's gone. And they're not even carbon copying her on the emails now. All right. Gone with the wind. Where to go? Well, gone. How come? Weird. Is it because maybe she blasted Terrence Bradley and Fannie didn't want that to happen because Bradley was on their side? Maybe. Maybe Fannie told her a bunch of other things. Maybe Anna thought that she was doing the right thing and Fannie lied through her teeth to her, and Anna went out there and was defending a liar and said, I'm done with you. I'm not doing anything. I'm not touching your case again ever. Get away from me. Who knows? Many different possibilities. Who knows? Now, 6, Mr. Wade's obvious perjury remains uncorrected to this day and therefore stands as ratified by Fannie. Mr. Wade, the perjurer, remains lead counsel for the state in one of the most prominent and closely watched cases in the entire country, if not the world. And each of these responses from Fannie shows profoundly impaired, if not utterly destroyed, professional judgment and the sacrifice of public duty to personal interest. The DA Fannie and her office should be disqualified, and this entire case should be dismissed. Respectfully submitted by Harry McDougald, Catherine Bernard, on behalf of Jeffrey Clark, and sent into the court. And absolutely right. It's like, finally, we're seeing some pretty aggressive language here. Nathan Wade clearly lied. Fannie Willis clearly lied. They both filled out forms and were dishonest on the forms. And when they asked about it, they came up with fake excuses that a 9-year-old would come up with. Well, I thought the word marriage meant this. I thought it meant this. No, little Robbie, it doesn't. It means this. Oh, okay. Now I know. Okay, these are lawyers. Fannie Willis said that she got no gifts. No gifts. Okay. And very clear in the forms, from any of these types of people. Guess who one of those types of people were? Nathan Wade. Should have reported about that. Didn't. So this is great. I think that it clearly articulates, even if you say and agree with the state, which I do not, that it should require an actual conflict of interest. He says, here's 6 of them. Pick one. Pick one. Any one of them. Which one do you want? And that meets their own rule. right? Now, then if you drop that standard below and say it's not actual conflicts, it is appearance, well, then they clearly will meet that one, because anything that's an actual conflict is also going to be an appearance. So the government is Fannie is trying to narrow the rules and make them very detailed, ask for a high standard to be met. And Jeffrey Clark just came back out and responded and took Fannie to task on this. So we are going to be here, my friends, waiting for the McAfee ruling. And of course, when that drops, we're going to be the first to cover it. We're going to be live immediately reading through it, wherever it happens to drop. And so thank you for joining us as we cover not only the Fannie Willis saga, but all of the other Trump litigation. He's got trial coming up in just about 2 weeks in the Alvin Bragg criminal prosecution for a bunch of felonies there related to that so-called hush money that Michael Cohen lied about. So we're going to cover that. We're going to cover the J6 case, the Florida case, the ballot removal stuff. We got Supreme Court stuff coming up in April, and we hope that you join us as we do. Thanks for subscribing wherever you're watching this. Thanks for liking this video. Thanks for inviting someone to come over here and join us when we go live. And thanks for checking out some of the links in the description below. We have robertgovea.com now has our calendar. And so you can go and see what is coming up. We're putting all of the motion deadlines on here. We're putting all of the show times on here. Trump is going to be in trial, as you see, starting on April 25th. And then next month in April, we're going to fill this out. We got SCOTUS reply deadlines and all sorts of stuff coming up. So check it out, robertgovea.com. You can also sign up for the newsletter on the homepage. Click here for instant access, get access to the mind map, get access to the newsletter. And make sure you come on back here, because we'll look forward to seeing you here on the next one. All right, my friends. Well, that is it for us on this stream today. And it's a little bit of a letdown. I was hoping that we would have that hearing, but we still got to unpack some good filings. And of course, now it's time to hear from you. What do you think about all this madness that's been going on? Jeffrey Clark now submits actual conflicts of interest. Fannie Willis scrambling with the last minute ruling. We've got McAfee now has an election challenger, this guy called Robert Patillo. And of course, Fannie Willis is not going to be hearing or having those complaints heard by Fulton County Board of Ethics. We'll see if anybody else digs into it. So now, my friends, it's time to hear from you. Of course, today, as soon as we're done here, we are going to go over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com and do our members only debrief and hangout session. And so come and join us. And we might have to open up a new thread. So if we have to do that, we'll certainly do that. But there was no hearing today. So they got cold feet there at the Board of Ethics. They said, wow, this is an ethical quandary. If we accept this case, we're going to have to actually decide this. We don't want to do that. So they just kicked it out. But now, my friends, let's hear from you. Let's see what you have to say about all of this and more, of course, over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We got some great donos, and we got our mods are clipping away for us. Thank you guys for doing such a great job on this. And let's see what we had in the house. Hey, we got Leland. Leland H is our newest supporter. Welcome aboard. Leland H is joining us on YouTube. Hey, there's that. Another one from Leland. Hey, Catania Mama Italia says, smash that like button. Thanks for the reminder, Catania. Hey, Glocky sharing this one says, here comes another Trump indictment. Yeah, this one's going on in Arizona. Apparently, they are sending out a ton of subpoenas here in Arizona, and they're going to try to, I guess, indict Trump again. Maybe see if they can convict him here before the election. I'm not sure about that, but we'll see. We're waiting for another one to drop. And I was only half joking about that. After we saw, what was it? There was something that happened. Oh, after SCOTUS. After SCOTUS came down and said that Trump wins in Colorado, I was thinking they're going to indict him immediately. They're going to race to indict him because they need to change the story. Catherine Rex, what's up, says, I have arrived. Good morning, Catherine. With 4 cups of coffee? Man, you must be feeling good. Obscure Ocelot says, the sound is fine. The flux capacitor appears to be good. Good. Okay, so I balanced out a bunch of stuff on the audio. And for those of you who might be streaming out there, I think one of the problems might have been with my hardware accelerator option on my Chrome. So if you have hardware acceleration on your tubes, that might help. We don't know. We'll see if it helps or not. We'll see if we can recreate the problem. Knox is here, says, happy Thursday, all. office day and no court today. That's good. Those are, nice clean out days. The political machine is putting up a challenger to the judge. These psychos have no reverse gear. Yeah, that's a good call, Knox. And Knox is a defense attorney in Texas. You need no court days so you can actually get some work done. But it's good to see you, Knox. And you're right. It's wild. The mechanics of the political machine have now gone into high gear. Glocky says 2 very good points in this one tweet. Paul Sperry says, an Atlanta lawyer familiar with Judge McAfee's thinking says he's reluctant to disqualify Fannie because he's worried rulings would spill over to every other indictment that she's signed. Yeah, and Phil says, no one knows what the judge is thinking. He did ask questions about that during the hearing last Friday, but he asked hard questions of both sides. And I don't think you can read anything into that. And it was 150, not 350. Practically the entire legal community wanted her to beat something. The comment goes on, but yeah, I don't know. I'm personally, I think the judge did a very neutral, nice job with the hearing, and we hope he does the right thing. That's all. We're just going to stay positive and hope he does the right thing and he does not get politically bullied in the court of public opinion. Court of public opinion, court of law. He's a judge in the court of law. If he wants to protect his reputation and have a career as a judge, and I think be seen as a judge who cares about the profession and its honor and integrity, I think he'll do the right thing in the court of law. I'm hopeful. But the political pressure there is, nothing to scoff at. And the question will be, what is the next step for him if he is disqualified? Maybe Trump wins and appoints him on the federal court. Could be an option. This one from Glocky says, at the very least, if nothing else, the judge has to at least grant a change of venue request after all this, right? No, I don't think so. No, I mean, if he doesn't disqualify Fannie, he says that she's perfectly capable of handling the case. So she'll stay on. David Abel is our newest supporter. What's up, David? Welcome aboard. Glocky says, I said it yesterday, I'll say it again. The fact that the citizens of Georgia are dying in record numbers at the Fulton County Jail because of Fannie's office and the sheriff, that isn't enough to warrant any action against her. This is a Greek tragedy. This one from Michelle says, Rob, can you cover Arizona's attempt to go after a similar lawsuit to Georgia over the 2020 election, please? I'll take a look at it, Michelle, and see if we can squeeze it in. I'm not even sure exactly what you're referring to, but certainly if it is relevant to the things we talk about here, it sounds like a juicy one, and it would be good to cover. Glocky says, if they elect that dude and you decide to stay in Atlanta, then I don't feel sorry for what happens to you. Yeah. If Fannie Willis stays on the case, probably a good idea to get out of Fulton. Pinochet says, in case of a Fannie emergency, break the water main. Yeah, right when they're counting the votes. Weird, a water main broke. We have to pause counting. Strange. Glocky says, Fulton County is still in the middle of the hack that happened to them, so I don't know if they even have internet over there. Yeah, that's true. A lot of stuff is still down. We had this one, Real, thank you, says 11 Alive is streaming the Board of Ethics meeting. Just search on the meeting. We'll get you to them. Thank you for that heads up. And I'm sure they were if the hearing was going to happen, but obviously it did not happen. So we all got kind of gypped on that one. Knox Bierman says, great. Patillo, Jesse Jackson, and Maxine Waters. This is so predictably stupid, right? You can just feel it. You can feel it in your bones. Glocky says, wait, he's on RT, which is Russian state media, talking about Trump colluding with Russia? Yeah, he was. The irony was dripping. Truthfinder says, good morning, Rob. Good grief. Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton wannabe. Restorative justice is code language for all things woke, racism, defund the police, no cash bail, corruption, shakedowns. Just suck it up, America. Suck it up. Okay, we got to defund the police. It has to happen. So just suck it up, okay? Just deal with it. We got Rob says, I object. I need more goose. I appointed a white guy to defend me at my hearing, which is Adam. Yes, says Rob. We got Sandy says, leaked info about Fannie preferring black male judges because they give power. They get lower black sentences to black defendants. It comes out just before a black man runs for judge against the guy who looks to disqualify her. Things that make you go, Yeah, she put that in her training to her prosecutors, that they prefer black male judges who are not Republicans over even black female judges. We got this from Glocky says, I don't feel bad for the inner cities collapsing. They deserve what they vote for and what they tolerate. Apparently they want more of it. Yeah. Sandy says, We got that one. King Ginger says, what happens to Fannie's election if she is disbarred? Well, if she's disbarred, she would not have a law license anymore, so I don't think she could be the DA, probably by statute. But if she is disqualified, she could still get reelected. She could still be the DA of Fulton County, even if she's not on the Trump case. So disqualification would just happen to the Trump case, not to the others. This one is from 51K, says, the Devil's a DA. Says, a little ditty inspired by the song the Charlie's Daniels Band. It is YouTube family friendly, but Rob, a forewarning, it is a bit of a tongue twister. I hope it brings you and the watchers a chuckle this morning. Okay, I'll let you guys read that on your own time. That's a long one. Sounds interesting. And we got some images of Fannie. Interesting. Looks like a good one there, 51K. We got this one from Chubby, says, I would think the judge might view Fannie's excitement over the contester as a betrayal, if he is indeed compromised, as some people think, due to their past together. Maybe, yeah, and maybe the judge sees the writing on the wall. Maybe he says, I'm going to lose this, so I'm going to actually do justice now, right? Like it's a done deal. He knows he's going to be shown the door, so he decides appropriately. Chubby says, I would think the judge might view Fannie's excitement over the contester as a betrayal. Todd Scott says, where is Fannie going to get her campaign funds? I don't know, Jesse Jackson, maybe? Everybody in Fulton, there's a big contingency there that apparently seems to support her. Glocky says, don't forget, she's charging taxpayers for a media consulting firm and a media analytics firm that is ran by Democrats to track her favorable ratings during media appearances. And yeah, that's that DeSantis guy. We got Hal Hey H. What's up, Hal? Welcome aboard, our newest supporter. Great to have you there. Love to have you. We got Glocky says, maybe the judge wrecks her in the DA's office because he knows he isn't going to win anyway, so he doesn't give a dang. Yeah, exactly. Great point. L. Murray says, Fannie has no shame. Total arrogance as she walks out. Johnny D. What's up, Johnny D? Becoming a new supporter on the YouTubes. L. Murray says, put the pressure on McAfee. Yeah, it did. Good morning, my beautiful and blessed people. Good morning to you, beautiful and blessed L. Murray. Nice to have you here. We got Round to It, our newest supporter on YouTube. Welcome aboard, Round to It. Obscure Ocelot, which is very hard to find. Says, a couple of reports on X are saying the Board of Ethics have determined they do not have jurisdiction over Fannie. Rah! And shout out to our friend Potentially Criminal. He's next door on YouTube. Does great legal analysis and also a criminal defense attorney. So it's even better than you'd think. We got this one from Flagpole Guy. What's up, Flagpole Guy? Look at this flag. Says, here's to happy Fannie and the best legal commentator on the tubes. Oh, man. May the Lord save America and may the people return to his sanity. Look at this beautiful flag and that very happy puppy. We love a good American flag. Shining proudly. Well done, Flagpole Guy. Andrew the Bard says, are we streaming the State of Confusion tonight? I need your help to make it through. I don't think so. I think a lot of people are streaming that, and a lot of people are responding to that. So I think we'll probably let that one go. I know Trump's doing live reaction. I know Tucker Carlson, I think, is doing a live reaction. It's going to be good. It's going to be a lot of other good stuff. And he's just going to, drool all over himself. T. Lewis says, that would explain why Fannie was all giddy yesterday. She probably knew that was going to happen. Yeah, or maybe she had another, encounter with Nathan. Quarter Native says, she's the Fulton DA. How do they not have jurisdiction? That math ain't mathin'. That math ain't mathin'. Yeah, it's not adding up over there, is it? Hey, this one from Roy says, here's the amended meeting notification. Great. So they changed it. Amazing. So here's the amended meeting notification. They just took all the Fannie stuff. All the Fannie stuff just got deleted. Just delete that, delete that. Perfect. Now we can have our meeting. What a joke. All right. So thanks for that one. And that was from Roy MC. Chubby says, okay, so basically Fannie is not held accountable by anybody except McAfee. We'll see. The Senate's looking into it. Kemp should sign that new oversight board that was passed into law. We'll see if the state bar does anything. But no wonder she's endorsing this opponent who just appeared out of nowhere and seemingly after the filing deadline. Well, I think he's just squeezing in before the filing deadline. Like, it's very soon. It expires very soon, so he's going to squeeze it in. Voice of the People says, how does the Board of Ethics not have jurisdiction over government official with ethics violations? Good question. They didn't really give us much detail on their justification. Obviously, they thought they had authority. My question is how are they disambiguating it? Have other prosecutors from Fulton County come before that board and they're just separating Fannie out because of the fact that she's the DA? That probably is the only position. Yeah, okay. Says here, we got, it's Rebecca Starr says, I think the judge will do the right thing. I hope so too. Us Atlians are tired of corrupt politicians. Black women are tired of it too. Yes, Fulton County is blue, but I'm not worried. Yeah, it's like you have to live with this stuff. This is a criticism that defense attorneys often get. It's like, you want like dangerous criminals to like run free and take over our society. It's like, no, we don't. We have to live in the same society as the rest of you. So it's like, not like we're like, yeah, like let's just like murderers who would just axe people to death, run free. We have to live in the same society. Now we've got obligations, right? But we want to see safe societies, and our role is to help people and all the things. So I agree with that. It's like, can we set politics aside to say that we just don't want corruption in general? Or are we too politicized that we are just hard red or hard blue, even when people are, dying in your prisons and torching your streets and all those things? We'll see. Hey, Knox says, here's the board, chairman of the ethics board. He looks like Fannie does. Yeah, I believe that. Vice chair has links to Jesse Jackson. So the board, might even be punting this because they have a political agenda. Not a surprise. Spud says, I assume an ideal date for Fannie and Wade would be to go to the delicatessen, indict a bunch of ham sandwiches, and then indict each other. Rivka, the Jade Gamer says, wait. Did you say she endorsed McAfee's challenger? No, I don't think so officially. Like, she's not officially going to do that, but we know who she's voting for. Doesn't that force him to recuse himself because it would be guaranteed? It would be seen as political now. Yeah, I think there's good argument that if that guy wins, if Robert Portillo wins, I think he's already commented on this case and other things. So I think as the judge, I think he would need to recuse himself, but he wouldn't be. I think he would need to recuse himself from the case if, say, he beats McAfee and gets on the case. But the theory is that his election is enough to pressure McAfee to not do that. Because if McAfee disqualifies, then he can't undo that order. I mean, she could appeal that, but he's not going to undo that order in that courtroom. Yeah, it's going to be very complicated. I think right now it's just about pressure on McAfee pre-decision and pre-election, just to warn him. Rob says, no one's above the law, especially Big Fannie. Ollie says, can we get Colonel Douglas McGregor for an interview? Yeah, that would be great. I don't do, obviously, a lot of interviews here because we have so much stuff to get through, and it's an added complexity that we don't do currently. I'd love to talk to Colonel Douglas McGregor, sharp dude. So I'll keep that on the list, Ollie. Thanks for the great suggestion. DJ Roach says the House of Representatives can impeach Fannie. They're in Georgia. I don't know Georgia statutes, but that sounds true. We got Glocky says, if you aren't worried about illegal immigration and a Rwanda-type genocide happening in America's own backyard, you better be. Salty Southern Mom says, Georgia SB 98 establishes a prosecuting office's attorneys oversight board. They would be the ones who discipline Big Fannie. Yeah, and I think that's going to Governor Kemp's desk. So we'll see what he does with it. Flagpole Guy says, if McAfee caves to pressure, it won't make a difference to his career. The voting machines are rigged. The not-so-reverent reverends picked for the position will be filled in by the preferred. McAfee should do the right thing and trust God. I think that's a great solution. Heart of Inspiration says, okay, so by this pleading, the County Board of Ethics does have jurisdiction because they are hearing citizen complaints. They didn't want to hear it. They were a little bit nervous there. This morning, they're like, I got an idea. We don't have jurisdiction. Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, update the minutes. I wonder if they got some phone calls from Gabe in Fannie's office last night. Good to see you. Thank you, Hart. Rocky says, so the defense is saying if Fannie was office, the board of supervisors would have never agreed to Wade. Fannie's team says the opposite. Well, why doesn't the judge just ask the board of supervisors what the truth is? Yeah, right. If Fannie went to the board and said, hey, I want to hire my lover, I need $700,000 for him, they'd say, no, not going to do that. She says, yeah, they would, because he's very, reputable. Just go ask them. We know what the answer is. Good to see you, Rocky. Chubby says Fannie's defense is to basically claim everything Trump's lawyers have been claiming for him that they've repeatedly discounted and argued against. Wow. They really do stick to their playbooks. Yeah, it's good insight. They do. Glocky says, so let me get this straight. In an American justice system, you can't hold judges accountable. No one has oversight over the DAs. Justice is administered or not administered based on political views and skin color. And I'm supposed to take cops and investigations and court rulings seriously? Diane M. says, the ethics board will not be hearing these complaints. Check out the update on local Atlanta TV stations. What a bummer. Yeah, they were excited for it too this morning. Roy says, considering most of the motion concerns Fannie as an elected official, would the judge be able to get around it by disqualifying Wade? And if he did, would the trial collapse? I don't think so. I mean, I don't think the judge can save Fannie. She's the other counterpart. I think he's got to get rid of her. And if he gets rid of her, he's got to disqualify the whole county. So it would go over. I think. I mean, if he disqualifies Nathan but not Fannie, it's like, come on. You're just separating the lovebirds, and you think that's going to fix the underlying bias. This whole case emanated out of a tainted indictment and investigation because she hired her lover. So I think the whole office has to be disqualified. L. Murray says, seeking justice. What a joke. Chubby says, yeah, Fannie was elected to do the DA's job, which is to bring justice. The judge was also elected to do his job, ruling on legality. She's done many legally questionable things, so it is the judge's job to determine if she's broken any laws. Her entire argument falls apart when you use their defense and apply it to the judge as well. Joe Drum says, off topic, but is there any updates on Mr. Kelly, the Arizona rancher? Yeah, he's scheduled for trial any minute now. And on our members only stream, I think we talked about he's asking for jurors to be taken out to the scene. So he wants the jurors to go out to actually view the scene. I'm sorry, his defense attorney does. Because of the distances and the angles, they're saying that he shot an illegal alien, and he's saying there's no way. He was at where the shell casings were, he shot over their heads. He was down in a ravine. He couldn't have hit him anyways, where the body was found, where the shots were. So they're trying to, the defense wants to bring literally the entire jury panel out to go see that. Should be very interesting. Dolphin fan is the man in the house, bringing in 5 membos. I was reading, Don't Mind Me said March 26th is the date of the trial. Thank you, Don't Mind Me. We got Dolphin Fan is bringing in 5 new membos. Snoopin, Will C, Sandy's coming in, Claudia H, Raul R is joining us, all courtesy of Dolphin Fan is the man in the house. We got Rain says, doesn't their argument of never been the case for a corrupt DA destroy their RICO case, since there has never been a RICO case for a former president? Yeah, that's a great argument, right? You could say the same thing. They say, well, this has never happened before. Has a president ever been prosecuted before? Why did you think that you could do that here? And they would say, well, it's Trump's egregious conduct. It's okay. Well, then prove your claim, right? So you could see how that could go both ways. But Knox says, just as there are collateral consequences of a conviction, there are collateral benefits associated with connection to a big case. Marcia Clark is still making money off OJ. That's true, right? You write a book. You're the Trump prosecutor. You get a little documentary, for whatever you did. Ride that grift for a long time. We got Chubby says, unworkable interpretation. What? To hold a DA accountable for their actions while in office? Seriously? This is quite the reach. Was Fannie wearing a cast or a sling this morning? She has to have pulled something with this big of a stretch. Her neck sore. She needs a neck brace from pulling so hard. This old guy says, Fulton County is so blue that McAfee will probably be defeated in the upcoming election. This can work to actually reduce the political pressure on him if he truly wants to apply the law equally to Fannie as well as to the RICO defendants. If he really has nothing to lose, he is free to rule in favor of the proper application of the law from this old guy. We got Scorpid says Georgia ethics jurisdiction equals ethics.ga.gov/enforcement. So we can see what that looks like. Thank you for that, Scorpid. C. Nana says, didn't Fannie refuse to allow pleas and separate cases and a move to federal courts? Well, I think she did oppose motions to sever. She did oppose motions to remove to federal court. And she did, well, there were 4 plea deals that were entered, but they were diversion deals. So they're not going to result in convictions. They will ultimately be dismissed, provided that the 4 co-defendants, Chesebro, Hall, Sidney Powell, Jenna Ellis, provided they all complete probation, their charges should be dismissed. Patrick Parker, 17 months as a membo, almost 2 full babies, says, how do you think the left is going to react? Well, this is how they do things. I mean, they weaponize positions. Tish James is weaponized, Alvin Bragg, Fannie Willis. They'll be thrilled. Oh, perfect. A corrupt judge who does whatever we want to. Great. Dustin Frey says Senator Jones in yesterday's hearing claimed no conflict can exist if it can be remedied, meaning there is a remedy for the conflict. It was never a conflict, among other fallacies. Yeah, he also had that dumb fallacy. It's like if you have money, if you make a lot of money, that means you don't steal, or whatever that argument was. Remember? Fannie Willis makes a lot of money. Okay, so she doesn't need your $3,000. All right, and that means she didn't steal. It's like, wow, that's a new defense. Okay, so any client can just use that as a defense now? He had money, so why would he steal? Well done, Senator Jones. Sheesh. Gino, what's up, Gino? Says, longtime listener. Thank you for being here for a long time, Gino. Very nice. First time dono. To me, the biggest issue is threatening the ex-wife with prosecution. If they did not allow new evidence in this case, can the defense file a new motion to disqualify? I don't think so. I don't think the judge is going to hear that again unless like something else, really big happens. He's going to say, this is the argument, like bundle your stuff up here unless something else comes out. But no, I mean, I think if the other co-defendants didn't join this, I don't think that they're going to be afforded the opportunity to file another one. Again, unless it's substantially different, he'll probably just say, I've reviewed this issue and it's settled. But I agree with you. It was really disgusting what he did to the ex-wife. And then, of course, Nathan just settled aggressively to close that whole thing out because they didn't want to continue to litigate that. And Fannie was interfering and threatening her boyfriend's wife. Sick. Good to see you, Gino. Thanks for jumping in with the dono today. NY says, Fannie defense forgets that it is not just a conflict. It's also prosecutorial misconduct. Forensic misconduct is like perjury, witness intimidation, unlawful use of, threat of prosecution in a civil divorce would meet that standard. Yeah, not good that she did that. Hopefully the judge acts accordingly. Roger Needham says Senator Jones also implied the average American family can spend 17 grand on vacations every 6 months, based on Forbes reporting that the average fam of 4 spends $3,700 on vacation. Another stupid argument. And there was like 4 vacations in like 6 months. It was one right after the other. So maybe one $3,700 vacation, you throw the kids in the car, travel up to the mountains or whatever. But it's not every month. That's clearly the difference. Sandy says, no Anna Cross again. Should someone call for a welfare check? Even the defense is noticing that, Sandy. I know you've been noticing that at length here. Lauren C. What's up, Lauren? Thanks for sending this one in. Very nice super chat. Appreciate you. Joe B. Juan Kenobi says ethics be damned. Leave Fannie alone. She's on a mission from God. It's from the Blues Brothers. From Joby Juan Kenobi. Trust the force, Joby. We got Water Jabbers. Says the Fulton County DA doesn't qualify as a county employee. Yep. Checks out for Georgia politics. We got TJ Elton. Says if Big Fannie is to be held to a higher standard, shouldn't that higher standard be applied to Trump as well? Asking for 200,000 of us. Well, yeah, I mean, Fannie basically is asking for a standard that she can do whatever she wants all the time without any consequences. And I think actually that's what a lot of the left say Trump is asking for, but that's not what we're actually saying. We're saying that the president under the Constitution has codified powers, and under Marbury, we have separation of powers and all of those justifications that establish presidential immunity. And there's a mechanism in our Constitution to breach that. It's called the impeachment proceedings. So we have a mechanism to challenge all of that. Now, in other words, what they're asking for is for Trump's standard to be ultra low, right? He can be indicted for anything, and anything, and for Fannie's standard to be very high. So it's, again, two standards of justice everywhere you look. Good to see you, TJ. Sean is here. Says, if this case is reopened, can the Trump defense team call VP Harris as a witness and ask her what was discussed at the White House meeting with Wade, Harris, and the mayor of Atlanta? It's a good question. I think the answer is going to be no. Personally, I think the judge would disqualify that. I mean, he might, like, the argument would be that Harris could impeach Fannie, right? So, like, yeah, like the theory would be like, yes, just like these other people that have come in, like the cell phone guy, for example. Wade said no. I didn't call her at all. Didn't go over there at all. Cell phone guy comes out. He says, yeah, you did. You were over there. I could triangulate you on the cell towers. So that evidence being used to impeach Nathan Wade, right? That would be admissible. Fannie said, I never went to the White House. Well, we got records that say that you met with Kamala. So maybe we bring in Kamala to impeach Fannie Willis. Now, I think that is legally something that could happen. Practically, the answer, I think, is most likely no. Judge would probably find some reason saying it's not relevant, or it's not the best evidence. We can find other evidence, or she's got immunity, qualified immunity in some way. Who knows? But it's an interesting theory. I'd love to see VP Harris come in and testify. Patricia N. says, Rob, if Patillo becomes a judge, would he have to give up his talk show and appearances and social justice work? Yeah, probably. I think that I've never been a judge, but I think there's probably a bunch of rules that say that you can't have anything that conflicts with your judgeship, right? So commenting like on open cases and stuff like that, I think would be a risk. And like the social justice stuff, right? Judges can't have appearance of improprieties. So if that is a political justice work or political appearances, I think he'd have to really clamp back down on those, because basically his career in those appearances on his talk show and his social justice work is about the issues, which might mean that defendants coming before him might believe he's biased on issues. Nemo says, Rob, here's a jurisdiction question. Could the Cobb County DA prosecute Fannie for obstruction because Bradley was in Cobb County at the time of the incident? I don't think so. I think the obstruction would be connected to the obstruction that took place in Fulton County. So I think the better forum, the better person to investigate and prosecute that would be the state AG, not the Cobb County. We got G. Tarrant. What's up? Says, hasn't Fannie potentially admitted to receiving kickbacks in the form of gifts and trips from a contractor she funneled work to, ironically, under the public corruption laws? She says that she didn't. She says she paid everything back in cash, right? That's her testimony. No, it was even Stevens. I always paid him back in cash. Any receipts? No. Does he have any receipts? No. Where'd you get it? Publix. So I don't think she admitted, to receiving anything like that. Her claim still, which is dishonest, is that it was all even Stevens. Frank L. says, you are right. If not dismissed, Fannie and Wade, and they lead it. Yes. Yeah, that was a theory we put up here, right? Like, if the judge is not going to disqualify Fannie is like the gift that keeps on giving, right? She's probably going to dig herself further into a hole as this whole thing unfolds, because she's got so much arrogance and incompetence combined into one. Those are not good combos. Sandy says, is it possible Anna filed a sealed notice of withdrawal due to disparaging remarks needing to be made? This is an old late 80s movie called From the Hip that is about exactly what Anna did. Anna's duty was to seek justice. She knew Bradley was lying and allowed the truth to come out in court. And my friends, I think we're just about out of time on locals. So hang on a second. Let me get another feed going on our locals stream, and then we will continue on. Let's make sure we're not losing our friends. We're going to get right back into the comments here in a second. As soon as we get this fired up. We have a time limit on our locals. And so sometimes we hit that time cap, and then we got to just reconnect the tubes, which is what we're doing right now. And I'm just talking to kind of fill in the air, so it doesn't sound so weird, me just sitting here. We got this tube being connected. Hip bone goes to the elbow. Elbow goes down to the knee bone. And okay, so now Locals is back live. And we're kicking that off. All right, so thank you for your patience on that, my friends. And yeah, I don't know if she filed, I don't think she filed a sealed notice of withdrawal. She's probably just MIA, just kind of going into hiding. Tim R. What's up, Tim R., our newest supporter over on the Rumbles. Very great to have you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We also have this one from Warrior Heart. Says, if the judge doesn't boot Fannie out, can't Trump appeal the whole thing? Yes, I think that he can. So the likelihood that this case goes to trial, and the question will be, is it still on stay when, is the case stayed while it's pending appeal? And I think the answer would be yes. So the likelihood that this goes to trial before the election, I think, is very, very low. Mark Fine, what's up? As our newest supporter, welcome aboard, Mark. Great to have you. We got Knox Bierman, says he looks like Fannie's dad, not does. He was involved in the Black Power movement. Interesting. I think there's a lot of that going on in the Fannie household. Thank you, Knox. Rivka, the Jade Gamer, says, right, I meant force McAfee to recuse since any disciplinary action would be taken as retaliation. You mean force McAfee to recuse? Like if Fannie endorsed the other guy? I don't think that would force him to recuse, if that's what you're asking. But you might not be. I think I'm confused. But Rivka, thank you for the dono. Good to see you on Rumble. Mustafa says, of course, all the Fannie cases should be considered suspect now. That is particularly why the DA should be ethically flawless. Investigate all her cases. Exactly. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. It's that domino effect. Okay, all the criminal defense attorneys in Georgia right now are going hog wild. Londo says, Rob, this just makes me angry. Curse you for dashing my hopes. Not really, but it is beyond upsetting. Yeah, they always pull it out of their booty, don't they? They just pull it out. And now it changes the whole balance of power there in Georgia. Jennifer says, any State of the Union live stream? I don't think so. I think we'll let other people who can tolerate Joe Biden for an extended period of time cover that one. But it should be fun. We'll do a debrief in the morning. Jennifer, you're a member. We'll do a debrief in the morning and see what's going on. We got R. Taylor says, Ashley showed Fannie and Fulton, and the mayor went to see Kamala. Then came this RICO indictment. She did a great job explaining how grand juries work, things prosecutors don't want people to know or think about. When the opposition senator said Wade was there for Fannie's pleasure, garbage case, I know, that was funny. He was there, he works at her pleasure. We're all like, oh, no. Garbage cases are such a waste of taxpayer dollars. They are literally ruining amazing, loyal Americans, threatening people to think twice to support Trump. Solitary confinement, anyone? No? Better watch yourself. From R. Taylor in the house. Yeah, that was a gross comment. Bad visuals. The Mad Ruski says, I watch you all the time. I figure I won't leech and can at least give a bit to the channel. Thank you, the Mad Ruski. The Mad Rusky. Ruski? Good to see you, the Mad Ruski. Thank you for that. Very generous dono. And I appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Glad that you watch and hope to see you back. Thanks for joining. We got Cal66 Caliber. A nice super chat coming in here. Thank you, Caliber. No question, but grateful for that. Here's one from, what is this? Here's what it says. Justice, rise on up. Please show us who they are. All hell's broke loose in Georgia, and these devils working hard. Ego's the sin that'll do her in. Big Fanny got no soul, and truth will win, and the law will uphold. When Govea opened his stream, us watchers said, let's go. The fire flew from his content that Fulton's quite the show. And we all watched in total shock, not expecting this. On the stand, she made demands, told lies about her bliss. When that devil finished, we all knew just what they'd done. She sat down in that chair. Her lies left us stunned. Soon we'll revel. On the day we know they've all been beat, high we'll raise that freedom symbol and toast to liberty's feet. Govea will say, devils, don't come back. Don't you ever try again. I done told you, Democrats, the watchers are here. Amen. That is from 51K in the House, I do believe. And 51K, what a beautiful poem. And thank you for sharing that with us. The Watcher fam marches on. Thank you for that, 51K. We got Felix says, everyone is seeing the Rodham Clinton tactics. We're watching it on display right now. Our Taylor says, ethics committees canceled because DAs don't have ethics, LOL. Powerfully connected, corrupt politicians with deep pockets most likely set this RICO case up and will continue to use any means possible behind the scenes to destroy and to win. It's happening. The gears are moving there in Georgia. We got Pamela says, I have to chuckle about Wade not wanting his kids affected by his divorce. I wonder what his kids think of all this. They're probably grossed out too. They're probably hanging with mom saying that dad's a total loser. Tiger Shark is here. What's up? Gift in another membo. Welcome aboard, B Crouch. Zone Girl says, I thought the senator was shocked that she talked with authors of the newly released book before a jury has been called. Nothing like dirtying the jury pool, plus more sullying it in the churches. And Felix says, the State of the Union messed up from the floor up because of Trump. Trump. Spawn Dog says, been there with you since the beginning. I was there when Miss Faith was even behind the scenes. That's a long time ago, Spawn Dog. You've been here for a while, and we're very grateful to have you. Thank you for the dono and the shout out. My friends, let us say hello to our friends on the X platform before we wrap it up. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only debrief, and we would love to see you join us over there. But let's see who is on the X and who is here in the house. That is not what I wanted. This is what I wanted. How many people are watching us over here? Oh my goodness. We got Sunshine State of Mind. We got Rob's in the house. We got Kat Ryan says, looks like it was taken off the schedule. Morticia says, Fanny wasn't worried at all on the video you played early this morning. She may have heard some very good news on how this judge is going to rule. It was over the top happiness considering her situation right now. Something seems to be up. Well, yeah, they may have just, pumped her full of Zoloft or whatever and said, be nice, okay? Stop screaming like a demented psychopath. I need water and glasses. Like, relax. Hey, we got this one. Says, apparently, county attorney is not a state constitutional officer. There are 4 county positions that are constitutional officers. Generally, it's sheriff, court clerk, tax commissioner, probate judges, not Fanny. But they said they couldn't hear it anyways. Isn't that fun? Hey, what's up? Crypto Nerd says Texas is watching. Shout out to our friends in Texas. We got Woos Ta Sauce, Big Hop, Hip Hop Thinker, big stories here. Kathleen Hastings says, is it possible that because of the new board overseeing the DAs that they do not have jurisdiction any longer? That could be true. Maybe that's why. There was something else that came in. And we got Silicon Valley Reject. We got Moni's over there. We got Rob's in the house and Sunshine State of Mind all on the X platform. And my friends, if you want to follow us over there, definitely go and do that at Rob Govea ESQ. And you, of course, can follow all of the other watchers out there in the wilderness all across the fruited plain of the internet. But my friends, that is it for us on the day. It was an early show today, a little bit of a letdown that we did not get the hearing, but we were still able to cover some good stuff. We're going to turn those into segments again, so they're a little easier to find if you missed something, if you got here late. We did cover some good ground today. We did talk a lot about what's happening in Georgia, just didn't have the hearing. So we are going to leave it there. We're going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. Let's see what we got. Some other comments come in as we were wrapping up. Spawn Dog, what's up, Spawn Dog? Says great commentary as usual. You're getting better and better. Well, thank you, Spawn Dog. I try. I try to improve the show. I try to not be as dumb as yesterday. It's like, yeah, gosh, all those dumb things you said. Don't do that again. And every year, every day, it's like, hey, try to be a little bit better. 1% better every day is like really, really, really compounding growth. So thanks, Spawn Dog. I don't always, deliver. Some days are off for sure. But thanks for that, Spawn. V is never silent says, pick and choose the facts. Fanny technically didn't meet with the V POTUS in the White House. It was a tent on the lawn, according to a visitor slip. Picking and choosing facts makes me shake my head and go, sigh. Yeah, No, Fanny's, no, I did not go into the White House. Okay. I was there on the lawn. So technically you're wrong. And again, that's like my younger brother when he would say, I'm not in your room, when he would put his arm in the door. Like any younger or older brothers, maybe even older or younger sisters, you know this. Don't come in my room. You know, like there was like 3 boys to a room for a long time. Then I finally got my own room, and I'd say, don't come in, my brother. It's my room. Don't come in here. You know, I'm like 9 years old. And then he would just stick his arm in the room. And I'd say, what are you doing? I'm not in your room. I'm in the airspace above your room. I'm not in it. I'm outraged, right? Murder. And then usually, you know, you get a little, tussle, and mom would have to come break it up. But that's what's happening here. I didn't go into the White House. I was only on the lawn in a tent. Like, you're a liar, Fanny. You're just a liar. All right. Sherry, what's up, Sherry? Very nice to have you as our newest supporter. And Pinochet coming in here says, isn't the DeSantis guy a White House plant? Yeah, Breitbart reported that. Could he be wearing 2 hats, controlling the narrative and disinformation by the media, and a direct line to the White House and the DOJ? Yeah, I think that is true. I think that is all true. And like Newt Gingrich came out and he said that he had heard about this, that Fannie Willis got a phone call, indict on Monday, you know, and she did. She came back out and indicted on Monday, came back out like 11:30 at night. We did it. Okay. So very cool. Very cool. Thank you for that. Pinochet's helicopter tours. And that, my friends, thank you all so much for the incredible donos. It was a beautiful morning, even though our plan was a little bit deviated. We still hit some good stuff and some good ground. And of course, we are going to be back here tomorrow to do it all again. So thank you for joining, subscribing, checking out all the links in the description, including watcherlodge.com. Don't forget about our new calendar at robertgovea.com. Our team is actively calendaring all the stuff. So you're going to see a lot more stuff be populated on there. And the show times are on there. So we'll move the show around. If you have any questions about any of that, check the calendar and add it to your calendar. And that way you get notifications, right? The event pops up and you can be notified about what's happening. So check it out. We're going now to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And we'd love to see you there. Before we wrap it up, we want to thank our mods and our meme smiths who are so beautiful and mod down the fort for us. Our friends Vienticus Prime in the house, K-Bean modding down for us, Just Cause, Playing Hooky, our friend Ronnie, Zulu, Beyond Geo. We have Zach Nichols, John Allen, Janek, Dog Digger, and Donut Mind Me helping keep things nice and orderly, clipping away for us. And our friends, thank you so much for the help. I know it's busy on these busy streams. We also have our meme smith, Sleepy Dog Lee, Nathan N810, and over on Locals, Geegum Geegum, making this place nice and beautiful. But that, my friends, is it for us on this beautiful, beautiful Thursday. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We're going to debrief, see what some of the comments look like, and hang out, talk about whatever comes up. Come and join us, my friends. Otherwise, we will be back here in the morning to get into it all tomorrow afternoon, normal time. I don't think we have any events tomorrow, so tomorrow will be normal time, member stream in the morning, live show in the evening. And we need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful, incredible day, my friends. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.